Greetings, my fellow Americans. This is your president speaking, Samuel Ronan, and today is Recap Thursday. Yes, folks, we made it through another week of streaming, and let me tell you, it has been a nail-biter this week, to the point where we had to... Our president, representing the United States of America, went overseas to the World Economic Forum just to be shot down about Greenland and all of his other threats of annexing and invading allied nations, right? We have a recap of the year of this first presidency and how much of the Project 2025 was actually implemented. We have the fact that ICE is rampaging across Minneapolis to this very day, has already touched down and began to occupy Maine. I had my own scare with ICE, essentially, I was alerted that ICE was in my community, beginning to start staking out and surveilling places to attack in Grove City. And then I went on the local Grove City boards and discovered that Grove City is doing very little to prevent ICE from acting within Grove City. So I took it upon myself to reach out to community members and actually was able to have very productive communications with several individuals. So hopefully my community is just a touch more safer. But that is to say, this is gonna come home to roost. Ohio is an extremely conservative state, and Columbus isn't any less conservative, right? Like, yeah, there's a Democratic district, District 3, but they're really not any different because there's still very large pockets of conservative voters and people who believe in the Republican ideology, either Trump or like the traditional conservatism. So, suffice to say, ICE is active in Texas, ICE is active in Florida, ICE is active all across the country, but where the circus is occurring the most are in blue states without with a duty to retreat clause on their books. So we're going to be focusing on that emphasis as well, that ICE continues to invade states and cities that have a duty to retreat, as opposed to engaging in this lawlessness in places where they do not have a duty to retreat. Because I can assure you, as conservative as Ohio is, people are not going to tolerate having tear gas thrown in their neighborhoods, or having their children kidnapped in their schools, or having their workplaces invaded. People are just really not going to stand for that. So, hopefully there isn't more to come from my personal experience, but there is definitely more to come as this occupation continues. Now, we can only hope that the Trump administration continues to get pushback, continues to falter and fail, and continues to crack under this pressure, like we are seeing with foreign policy. So, without further ado, we're going to start off with our favorite recap from Democracy Now! Top U.S. and world headlines.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. President Trump's backed down on his threats to take Greenland from Denmark and to impose tariffs on European allies who oppose his plans, at least for now. After a dramatic day at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, Trump announced the framework of a future deal had been reached for Greenland and the entire Arctic region. Trump's comment came after he met with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Details of the framework have not been made public.
Well, what's the framework of a deal with Greenland anyway, considering Greenland is already part of a framework for defense and trade, i.e. NATO? Like, what more needs to be done and said? Like, literally. I can't imagine that there's a deal to give Greenland to the United States. So, I have no idea what's being discussed, and of course, it's apparently classified.
Trump said the deal would involve the United States getting mineral rights and for Greenland to be used for Trump's proposed Golden Dome missile defense system. Trump was questioned about the deal last night.
Does it still include the United States having ownership of Greenland like you've said you wanted?
It's a long-term deal. It's the ultimate long-term deal.
The Greenlandic politician Aja Chemnitz.
But I mean, mineral rights is something that we already had. So, like, making that a big talking point at all, as if that's newsworthy, is ridiculous, because America already had that going for it. Also, sorry, Anna, welcome to the stream. Thank you. Hi.
Who serves in the Danish parliament, criticized Trump's deal. She said, quote, NATO in no case has the right to negotiate on anything without us, Greenland. Nothing about us without us, she said. During a major speech to the World Economic Forum earlier on Wednesday, Trump repeatedly called Greenland Iceland. Today, the heads of all 27 European Union nations are meeting in Brussels for what's being described as...
I'm going to throw this out there. Sorry for ignoring you. See, look, I recognized you this time quicker, right? I was too busy being on my soapbox, okay? My bad. Anywho, we are seeing the rapid, I mean, what do you, like, dissolving, like, reduction, the degradation of this man's sensibilities, right? Well, of which there weren't many to begin with, but, like, it is becoming apparent, like, clearly, more and more apparent that his faculties are leaving him, and he isn't even aware of what he's talking about half the time, if he was aware of what he was talking about in the first place. This is a clear-cut example of needing to take the 25th. The 25th, you ask? Let's see. Let's go ahead and make a duplicate. The 25th Amendment. Let's see. So Section 1 just reaffirms that the VP becomes president. Whenever there's a vacancy in the office, the president shall nominate a vice president who shall take office upon confirmation. Okay, that's cool. Whenever the president transmits to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House a written declaration that he is unable, so he can willingly step down, which obviously he's not going to do, but he could. And whenever the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, transmit to the president the written declaration. This one right here, Section 4, being the clause that states we can force the issue. We can force Trump down. But I guess it requires a larger consensus, right? It's you need the cabinet and the vice president, which they are loyal and finding him useful in the presidency. But the point still stands that we literally can and should do this. And I don't know what kind of politicking it would take. Plus, aren't these a bunch of self-serving sycophants anyway? Doesn't J.D. Vance want the office? Doesn't Marco Rubio want to be VP? Because, I mean, that's how I view this happening, right? J.D. Vance goes up, Marco Rubio goes up, and everything else stays the same except you fill Marco Rubio's position with some other sociopath. Again, from a self-serving point of view, I'm shocked that this cabinet is not trying to oust Trump. But then again, we all know that if Trump is gone, the MAGA movement goes with him. So I'm guessing that's the main reason. But it doesn't prevent the Democrats from bringing it up, let alone impeachment. But, you know, I digress. Marquito ran for president. Yeah, he did. And he lost after being humiliated by Trump. And now he's one of the top members of the Trump administration because, you know, they stand for nothing.
As an extraordinary summit. President Trump hosted a signing ceremony today in Davos for his so-called Board of Peace. Some 35 countries have agreed to sign on to the project, but many critics fear the board could undermine the United Nations.
Which is, I mean, honestly, it clearly is undermining the United Nations because the United Nations isn't involved. And it's an international agreement dealing with a victim of genocide. The worst part of all this is it seems like this Board of Peace could quickly turn into the alternative United Nations, i.e. the beginning stages of the Axis powers of modern times, right? And the fact that 35 countries signed on to it, and the fact that billionaires can spend $1 billion to get on the board itself, means not only is it the Axis powers, but it's also a direct link to capitalism, as an experiment of direct governing authority and power. As in, capitalists can directly dictate the future of a state, of a sovereign body. Granted, Palestine isn't really recognized, but I think this kind of does sort of recognize Palestine. Suffice to say, between the billionaires that join it and the 35 countries who are aiding and abetting the cover-up of the modern Holocaust, this does not bode well for either the United States or the world at large.
Trump will serve as the board's chair indefinitely and have veto.
Indefinite chairmanship? Oh my God. I'm sorry. Let me just, you know what? Let's hear this from the beginning.
For his so-called Board of Peace. Some 35 countries have agreed to sign on to the project, but many critics fear the board could undermine the United Nations. Trump will serve as the board's chair indefinitely and have veto power over all the board's decisions. He's asking countries to pay $1 billion for a permanent spot on the board. Trump initially proposed the board to oversee Gaza, but he now envisions a much broader mission.
So, literally, exactly what I just said. And I want to be very clear right now. I haven't watched this video. I didn't hear about this Board of Peace and the vision or the fact that it was 35 signatories. I only knew about the Board of Peace and the fact that it was being sold for $1 billion a seat. But the fact that I accurately predicted that he was going to try turning it into a New World Order type deal, and on top of the fact that he has unilateral veto powers over all of it, he is literally deliberately building a global power structure where he is the supreme authority. Now, we have talked at length about the likelihood or the tendency for human beings to form bigger and bigger groups, and therefore the unification of the peoples of Earth is eventually going to happen. But if this is the first step of that happening, and it's going to be under a authoritarian capitalist regime, i.e. fascism, that is literally one of the scariest things to ever happen in human history. Like, this is the shit that happens in comic books. This is the shit that happens in books and novels. This is the shit that happens in TV shows and movies. The fact that this actual league of villains is forming right before our very eyes, with the worst criminal at the top, with absolute authority and absolute veto powers, and selling the seats for $1 billion a pop to seed the funding of this infrastructure that will proliferate from this point forward. I mean, impeachment at this point is not nearly enough. Like, not only do you have to erase his legacy in the United States, you're going to have to dismantle the bullshit that he's creating on the international scale as well. We are living in the darkest chapter of human history, and that includes the Golden Horde massacring 10% of the population of Earth. That includes the Dark Ages. That includes the bubonic plague. That includes whatever plague happened in North America soon after white people showed up. This includes the Holocaust, because we're having another one in addition to all this other shit. This is literally the darkest chapter in human history, at least recorded history. There is the suggestion that around 200,000 to 300,000 years ago, there was a massive global war between all of the Neolithic humans and somebody else that there is evidence of throughout all of the 6 continents. So, suffice to say, having the biggest narcissistic piece of garbage pedophile ringleader in charge of an international cabal with 35 other countries, where the decisions being made in this cabal belong ultimately to the number one pedophile on the planet, is definitely not something. And this is the beginning of 2026. Like, 2026 is coming out swinging hard for dystopian nightmares. I don't really know what else to say at this point.
Once this board is completely formed, we can do pretty much whatever we want to do, and we'll do it in conjunction with the United Nations. You know, I've always said the United Nations has got tremendous potential, has not used it. On the 8 wars that I ended, I never spoke to the United Nations about it.
Why are we giving him airtime? Secondly, the United Nations is powerless because of that veto power that Trump has exercised over and over again. Otherwise, Israel would have been condemned last year. Granted, that's still a year too late, but, you know, it still would have occurred. And the fact that we're listening to this shit and giving him the podium to speak out of his ass and literally not be held accountable or contradicted or challenged is disturbing.
Any of them. And you would think that I should have. You would think they could have done those 8 wars, but they couldn't have, and they tried, I guess, in some.
Boards so far include many right-wing or authoritarian governments, including Argentina, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Belarus, Egypt, Indonesia, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and the United Arab Emirates. Hungary is the only European country to sign on.
I mean, those weren't all 35 countries, but that was definitely a who's who of people that are causing problems in the world. And again, how many Middle Eastern countries are joining this board, and yet they're our enemy, our like number one enemy? They are among the 75 countries that have all visa access revoked from the United States, but they signed on to this board anyway? Like, make that make sense.
France, Norway, Slovenia, Sweden, and the United Kingdom have all said they will not join. Trump has invited Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Russian President Vladimir Putin to join the Board of Peace.
Which, as far as I know, Netanyahu has joined the board. But the fact that he invited Putin as well, like, that's insane, because I can't imagine Putin putting himself beneath anybody, let alone Trump, especially since Trump is Putin's puppet. So I'm unless that's the point, right? Putin can be like, oh no, Trump vetoed it. It just so happens to benefit Russia. Oh my God.
The Israeli press reports Netanyahu opted not to fly to Switzerland out of fear he would be arrested for war crimes.
And again, on top of this piece of shit, our president embarrassing the world and threatening it every other hour, Netanyahu, an actual war criminal, can't step foot on many, many countries and fly through many, many different airspaces because there is an outstanding warrant for his arrest. And yet, this country, our country, is one of the few where he can roam freely. But he couldn't go to Switzerland. And they're going to be joining the Board of Peace, which will be overseeing, among other things, the Palestinian rebuilding.
During the Board of Peace ceremony, Trump also suggested a settlement on the Ukraine war is, quote, coming very soon, unquote. Israeli attacks on Gaza killed at least 11 Palestinians Wednesday, including 3 journalists who were working with the Egyptian Committee for Gaza Relief. Mohammed Keshta, Abdul Rauf Shath, and Anas Ghounaim were killed when an Israeli missile struck their vehicle. Shath.
Again, why are the Israelis shooting missiles at all during a ceasefire? And why are they miraculously targeting yet 3 more journalists in the process? Like, the sheer amount of corruption and depravity that is spewing out of both America and Israel is disturbing, to say the least.
Was a contributor to CBS News and Agence France Presse. He just got married within the last weeks. Mohammed Mansour of the Egyptian Committee for Gaza Relief condemned Israel's attack on the journalists.
What happened is a very big crime committed by the Israeli army by targeting a crew belonging to the Egyptian committee. This crew was not firing rockets nor fighting the Israeli army. The Egyptian committee's crew was in a humanitarian mission. This crew is searching day and night for a shelter to house our people.
According to the International Federation.
So is Egypt gonna, I don't know, do something about it or just shake their fist?
Of journalists, at least 258 journalists and media workers have been killed in Gaza since 2023. The Associated Press is reporting ICE is asserting that federal immigration officers have the power to forcibly enter homes without a judicial warrant in what legal experts say is a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment. ICE made the sweeping claim in a secretive memo dated May 12th. Two whistleblowers shared the memo with Senator Richard Blumenthal. On Wednesday, Blumenthal said, quote, "It is a legally and morally abhorrent policy that exemplifies the kinds of dangerous, disgraceful abuses America is seeing in real time," unquote. The revelation of the memo comes just days after armed, masked agents in St. Paul, Minnesota, battered down the door of a home and without a warrant arrested a man who was let out of his home in his underwear in sub-freezing weather. It turned out the man, Changli Scott Tao, was a naturalized U.S. citizen who was born in Laos. He was later released.
I'm just saying that unlawful breaches of your property and your home anywhere in the country, I mean, I guess I say that a little too loosely. Nope, that's not it. Where's that map? What? Where did I move it? Son of a biscuit. Was that not here? Did I not keep that map? Oh, here it is. Okay, well, this needs to be moved. Wait, no. This is not the map. Where's the friggin' map? Culture, constitutional references. That would be more of a stream link. Where did that map go? The one that showed which states had duty to retreat. Oh, is this it? I feel like this is it. There it is. Okay. So, duty to retreat. Well, here's the thing. If somebody breaks into your house, self-defense, right? I mean, at the end of the day, self-defense. And if they are breaking into your home without a warrant, I mean, that is in clear violation of the Fourth Amendment. So all I'm saying, with no real intent or threat or whatever behind it, is that if ICE starts doing this unilaterally, they're going to find out the hard way that when you mess with rednecks, or, I don't know, leftists who exercise their rights, that's going to end poorly for them. Very poorly. And it goes back to what we were talking about, that all of these activities are happening in places where you have a duty to retreat. Minnesota, Maine, New York, Oregon, California. I think they're doing shit in New Mexico. Now, granted, they also are doing stuff in Texas and Ohio, which does not have a duty to retreat. But what they're doing in Texas and Ohio is not terrorizing whole communities. They're just surveilling locations and targeting people as quietly as possible. And then apparently there aren't enough bystanders to get it on camera to get it to the news. But regardless, they are definitely minding their P's and Q's far more in these green states than they are in these white states, which is an ironic color scheme given how you'd have to talk about that. So, the fact that ICE dated this in May and that they've been exercising with that authority since May, which they don't have, they can't have, even if it's a memo, that doesn't magically absolve them of following the Constitution. But it explains why they've been acting the way they've been acting for a majority of the past year. Because for a majority of the past year, they have been told they have extrajudicial, extra-constitutional rights to supersede the Constitution. So.
In more news from Minnesota, school officials in Columbia Heights say ICE agents have detained 4 children in the school district in recent weeks, including a 5-year-old boy named Liam Ramos, who was detained Tuesday along with his dad as he returned home from preschool. The school released a photo showing a masked agent standing next to Liam, who was wearing his backpack and a blue winter hat with bunny ears.
I mean, first of all, what kind of piece of shit do you have to be to take a child away from their parent from school, of all places? But generally speaking, right? First of all, how much of a piece of shit do you have to be? And then second of all, the fact that he's covered up to his eyes, you know, as if that's going to prevent us from identifying who he is and doxing him eventually. And the fact that there are a not insignificant number of Americans who will see this picture and be like, well, they shouldn't have been here illegally. Why don't you volunteer your kids? Why don't you because eventually they are going to come for you for dissenting, for not praising Trump enough, for not having a Trump shrine in your home. They will eventually find an excuse to come for you. And I really and truly hope you have that same energy when they kidnap your children or your loved one, or kidnap you at your workplace, or kicking down your door because, oh, sorry, wrong address, while they drag you out in your skivvies in sub-zero weather. And to Anna's point, they are way quieter in Texas and Ohio as examples, and this makes me angry cry. Yeah, I mean, this definitely makes me some kind of something.
About 20 minutes later, Liam's older brother arrived home from middle school to find his younger brother and father were gone. School officials say Liam and his father have been sent to a detention center in Texas.
Why are we kidnapping people in Minneapolis and then trafficking them to Texas, where there are known human rights violations occurring, including deaths? Sounds like Nazi death camps to me. Sounds like putting the Juden on the train and sending them off to Auschwitz. Because that's what we're effectively doing.
More than 1,000 miles away. School officials also say ICE agents tried to use Liam as bait by asking him to ring the bell to his home to help agents detain additional people. One of Liam's teachers said in a statement, quote, "Liam is a bright young student. He's so kind and loving, and his classmates miss him. He comes into class every day and just brightens the room. All I want is for him to be back here and safe."
And how much more fucking despicable can you be than using a child as bait to target more people? Like, honestly, Nuremberg-style trials for these pieces of garbage, for these monsters, for these evil, vile human beings, is too good for them. Like, honestly, we need to bring back some medieval torture and some medieval execution. Drawn and quartered, publicly paraded in the streets, public beheadings, burning at the stake. Anything other than just a jail sentence with parole. These people are monsters. They are evil, malevolent creatures who do not respect the sanctity of life at all, and are getting paid bonuses to commit acts of terror in our city streets against civilians in our country, oftentimes against their fellow Americans. These are not people that should be forgiven and given the courtesy of the law. I'm just saying. Yeah, they need a trial and all that. Yeah, absolutely. But when it comes to the sentencing, There will be no 5 to 10 years or light sentences with good behavior or parole. No, death penalty. 1,000,000%. Every single agent of ICE, every single employee of ICE are literally Nazi-style Gestapo. I don't care if they're just admins. I don't care if they're just doing the financing aspect of it. They are all choosing to comply and to aid and abet in these atrocities. Therefore, they are fucking guilty. How come they can't start an OnlyFans if they need money? Yeah. Honestly, let them do sex work instead of terrorizing children in freezing weather and then separating them from their families, or trafficking them to other states with known human rights abuses. So, all of which to say,
the teacher said. A medical examiner in Texas has determined a Cuban immigrant who died in ICE detention.
Huh! Speak of the literal devil. A Cuban immigrant that died in a Texas detention center, concentration camp, was found to be a homicide.
In El Paso died as a result of a homicide. An autopsy found that Geraldo Lunas Campos died from, quote, asphyxia due to neck and torso compression, unquote.
I.e. kneeling on somebody's fucking neck and on their spine at the same time.
ICE has claimed the 55-year-old father of 4 died while staff were attempting to save him after he tried to take his own life. But a witness told...
Right, because detainees who have been illegally captured and trafficked, the first thing they're going to do is try and commit suicide rather than fight desperately to get back to their loved ones? Shut the fuck up.
Told the Associated Press that Lunas Campos died after he was handcuffed, tackled by guards, and placed in a chokehold until he lost consciousness. The Washington Post has revealed the Department of Homeland Security is now attempting to deport 2 men who witnessed Lunas Campos's death.
Wow. So not only are we murdering people in U.S. detention centers, concentration camps, death camps, we're also going to cover it up by deporting witnesses to the crime, because we already know that the fellow Nazis aren't going to tell on each other. Outstanding.
Democratic Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal responded online, writing, "This looks a lot like a cover-up. We need an independent investigation now."
Yeah, we do need an independent investigation. Almost as if she was a member of Congress and actually has maybe the authority to do that very thing. To literally send armed police, federal agents, whatever, into that detention center and literally take the footage to review and then actually put through whatever process to get these people indicted and charged. Now, granted, we know they're not going to do it at the federal level because Pam Bondi's too busy covering up crimes upon crimes upon crimes. But at the state level, those justices are significantly less complicit and in the pocket of Trump. For now, of course. So, like, all of these Democrats saying, man, I wish there was somebody that could do something about it, while they are literally the somebody that can do something, is disgusting. It's just lip service to try and get public sympathy and empathy or polling points during re-election time.
He wrote, Lunas Campos is one of 3 immigrants to die over the past 2 months at Camp East, Montana, a sprawling ICE detention tent camp located at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas.
Great. So the death camp is on a military installation and has been the center of multiple deaths in several months. I mean, literally. In the history books, the Nazis, the Trumps, the MAGAs, they're all going to be in the same context, right? Nazi Germany in the 30s and the 40s, the MAGAs during the late 20-teens and the mid-2020s. We have our own death camps on our military installations. and a third of the country celebrated it, a third of the country ignored it, and a third of the country tried to fight back ineffectively. Modern day slave patrol, calling them Nazis, in my opinion, ignores the United States' known history doing this. You know, I'm not going to argue with that. I'm not. I just don't think people... I just really don't think people associate American history, the Confederacy, the slave patrols, slavery itself. I just really don't think people in America have the ability to put two and two together that this is a direct correlation to that. Or the fact that the Nazis used those references to conduct their atrocities. So fundamentally, yes, it was the slave patrol first. The Nazis learned from the slave patrol, and now we are once again learning from the Nazis who learned from us. So, I mean, either which way, it's still an extension, and it is a direct correlation. It is a direct evolution across time. But, to your point, you're not wrong. I am not going to argue with you. I just don't know if that context reaches people. Because, okay, say we do it from the context of the slave patrol, right? You're going to immediately run into the knee-jerk reaction of, well, I'm not a racist. And the slave patrol had nothing to do with immigrants. But the Nazis did go after immigrants and dissenters. So, I mean, this isn't the slave patrol. Or they're going to be like, well, they're not going after black people. So it's not really the slave patrol. It's the slave patrol, but worse if we're including immigrants. But that's not the same. Like, you're going to get... And then, of course, the conservatives are like, that ain't the slave patrol. They went after slaves. These are immigrants. They're illegal. They deserve to get all this shit done. You know what I'm saying? Like, I believe the accuracy is there, that this is a direct evolution of the slave patrol, because that's what modern policing is as well. That's why there's prison labor instead of slavery. It was literally, slavery ended, prison labor began the very next day. But that nuance is lost on entirely too many Americans. And I think that's why we stick to the whole Nazi comparison, because that one is accurate and very visual. It evokes a very visceral image in mind. On top of the fact that a lot of these DHS and ICE leaders are emulating Nazi uniforms, talking points, phrases, and recruitment tactics, as well as justification tactics. So, in that context, the Nazi comparison is more accurate. But I would, if that narrative kicks up that this is just an extension of the U.S. slave patrol or Manifest Destiny, great. Then we can adapt that and maybe hold ourselves accountable. But I've been seeing that enter the talking points on social media, and I've seen them be used to distract from the point of what ICE is doing by trying to focus on the nuance, which is part of the CIA handbook to disrupt communist organizers or communist countries, right? Focus on the minutia, argue about the details, argue about the context, and don't focus on the actual problems, right? Not saying that's what you're doing, True Steel. Not arguing that in the slightest, not accusing you of that. But the way I have seen it being used on social media is that neoliberalism, well, whataboutism. We need to talk about the right words if we're going to talk about it at all. And then that ends up being the debate rather than the focus of the issue, which in this case is the fact that we are kidnapping and trafficking people, including children, to literal death camps across the country and across the globe. So as long as we are focused on that language, I think we're fine. And as long as we're not using the nuance to go on a tangent about the nuance, I think we're also fine. So that discussion was a mix of both agreeing with the history and the context of the Slave Patrol and ICE, but also highlighting the importance that we cannot allow the debate of terminology to distract from what is actually happening.
The Department of Homeland Security has launched a new immigration crackdown in the state of Maine, targeting Portland and Lewiston, which has a large Somali population. DHS has labeled the camp.
Remember how we said they were going to go after Latin folks first, and then they were going to go after black folks second? Guess what? To an ICE agent, Somali and African American are indistinguishable. So understand that they're going to start going after black communities outright. Not Somali communities, not predominantly African American communities, irrespective of wealth, poverty, or income. They're going to start targeting and profiling black folks with the same impunity that they are targeting Asian folks and Latin folks, as we have been seeing repeatedly for most of the past year.
Campaign Operation Catch of the Day.
And the Operation Catch of the Day, like, these are vicious, violent, and malevolent phrases being used as code terms for these operations, which themselves are inhumane. Like, this is a war on the population. This is not a bloodless war either. There have been casualties. There have been fatalities. There is blood in these streets. And the violence is unilaterally being doled out by the state, and we're too busy peacefully resisting and maybe organizing a general strike here or there. Like, the only thing that this is ever going to do is escalate, expand, and become more violent. That's it. That is the only thing that ICE and the agency and DHS and this administration are going to do. They are only going to expand, they are only going to escalate, and they're only going to increase the violence.
Lewiston Mayor Carl Shaleen criticized the operation, saying, quote, ICE's terror and intimidation tactics reflect a complete lack of humanity and concern for basic human welfare. We'll go to Lewiston, Maine, later in the broadcast. Justices on the Supreme Court appear poised to reject President Trump's effort to oust Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook, the first black woman to serve on the board. During more than 2 hours of arguments, justices repeatedly questioned Trump's authority to unilaterally remove her. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell attended the hearing, defying a warning from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent not to attend. Trump has repeatedly threatened to fire Powell as well. Earlier this month, the Department of Justice launched a criminal probe into Powell. California Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters spoke outside the Supreme Court Wednesday.
I hope that the Supreme Court considers the facts and arguments in today's hearings and sends a clear message to Trump that this country is governed by laws, not by one man's fragile ego. The Fed does not belong to Donald Trump. It belongs to the American people.
Well, the Fed actually belongs to the private banks, but, you know. Also, Maxine Walters shaking her fist in a speech when she's a literal sitting congresswoman, and could literally be filing articles of impeachment, articles to dissolve ICE, any number of things. But instead a presser where she shakes her fist and then literally does nothing else afterwards.
The House Oversight Committee has voted to hold former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress for refusing to comply with a subpoena.
Bruh, why don't you hold Pam Bondi accountable for contempt of Congress by not releasing the Epstein files? Are you fucking kidding me? You're going after political enemies. Fuck the Clintons. They'll get theirs eventually. Like, this isn't even the thing that they should be gotten for. And it has to do with the Epstein files themselves because they were mentioned. Bruh, Pam Bondi is deliberately not releasing the files, but you want to go after specific political targets that were mentioned in the files? Like, the hypocrisy isn't... again, the English language cannot accurately convey just how corrupt that action is, or how this Congress is, or how this government is. It's just... It is breathtaking. The levels of expansion of corruption that we continue to witness and expand every single day.
To testify as part of a congressional probe into the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. 9 Democrats on the House panel voted with Republicans to hold Bill Clinton in contempt. According to flight logs, Bill Clinton took 4 international trips on Epstein's private jet. Meanwhile, the House committee has also...
Meanwhile, Trump was named no less than 2,700 times in those files. So...
announced it will depose Epstein's co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell on February 9th as part of its probe. She's currently serving a 20-year sentence on sex trafficking charges. This all comes as pressure grows on the Department of Justice to fully release its Epstein files. So far, less than 1% of the files have been made public. A Texas jury has acquitted former school police officer Adrian
Oh, wait, no, this isn't the one I was thinking.
Gonzalez in the first trial over the police response to the 2022 Uvalde school shooting in which a gunman killed 19 children and 2 teachers in their classrooms. Gonzalez had been charged with 29 counts of child endangerment for deciding not to immediately enter Robb Elementary School to confront the gunman. And Chile's...
Oh, so that's why he's facing... justice, is because he isn't a white cop, because he's a Latin cop, and then a Latino cop, right? Maybe born and raised in America. I don't know about this guy, one thing or another. But when he's indicted, make no mistake that they're going to tout this man as yet another example of why illegals are a problem in this country. Fucking disgusting how just blatantly obvious they keep trying to build narratives in this country.
Far-right President-elect Jose Antonio Cast has named 2 lawyers who once represented U.S.-backed dictator Augusto Pinochet to serve in his cabinet.
I mean, if you're bringing cabinet members or people who worked with Pinochet onto your cabinet, like, you are not a good guy. You're just not a good person. That's literally... Well, that's what America did, right? With Hitler. Operation Paperclip. We took the Nazis and hired them and put them in charge of NASA.
Pinochet ruled Chile from 1973 to 1990. One of the lawyers, Fernando Rabat, has been tapped to head Chile's Justice and Human Rights Ministry. The other, Fernando Barros, will serve as defense minister. Cast has...
So, one of Pinochet's lawyers is going to be in charge of human rights and the other as part of the defense? Like, guys, are you fucking serious? Okay.
Openly praised Pinochet and is the son of a Nazi who fled Germany after World War II.
Wow.
Human rights groups criticize...
Wow. Like, openly supports Pinochet and is the descendant, a direct descendant of Nazis.
The selections. The Association of Relatives of Detained and Disappeared Persons wrote last week, quote, "It constitutes a direct offense to the memory of the victims of the dictatorship and their families. It reaffirms a history of apologizing for the dictatorship and a commitment to impunity." And
those are just some of the headlines. And that got us through 48 minutes of the first half of our stream here. The next few videos are essentially the 1-year mark of the presidency, so I don't know which ones we're going to do here, but let's pick a short one first.
Let's look at Trump's first year in numbers. First, executive orders. These are presidential decisions that take effect immediately, without Congress being involved. President Trump signed 225 of them in 2025. For comparison, Joe Biden signed 77 in his first year in office.
Which, 225, I think, is the record. Obama definitely did more than that in his second term or first term or something like that. And of course, Biden only did 77. But the fact that executive orders can always be superseded by other executive orders is pretty interesting. And the fact that they don't actually carry the weight of law, they're more like suggestions that are extremely firm and apparently tend to be followed without question.
On the first day of this term, Trump signed 26. That's the most ever signed by a president in a single day. The president has also issued pardons. The January the 6th riots took place here in Washington in 2021. On returning to office, immediately Trump pardoned almost everyone convicted in connection to those riots. That was more than 1,500 people, including those serving time for assaults on police and obstruction of Congress. Through the year, Trump issued another 75 individual pardons, as well as a mass pardon for people involved in efforts to challenge the 2020 presidential election.
Right. So he pardoned the Jan 6 rioters, of which he had nothing to do with, and then 75 individual pardons, which was revealed to be a pay-for-pardon scheme. If you give Trump several $1 million, he'll pardon you.
For comparison, Joe Biden didn't issue any in his first year. He would issue 80 over his entire term. That included, just before he left office, a pardon for his son Hunter and preemptively for several other family members. Next, President Trump's foreign trips. He visited 13 countries, including Vatican City to attend the funeral of Pope Francis, the UK, where he finalised a new trade agreement, Israel, where he addressed Parliament, and Egypt to announce a ceasefire in Gaza. There were domestic...
All of which didn't actually amount to anything. Because even though he went to the UK for that trade agreement, he immediately started threatening NATO and tariffs. Quantum Traveler. Listen. All right. Quantum Traveler. Your name strikes me very clearly because, one, I've been playing a game called Edge of Time, I believe it is. And you are called a Quantum Traveler. Literally. Edge of Lifetime, sorry. And you are actually called a Quantum Traveler. Secondly, if you are a time traveler, can you please tell us that shit gets better? And or give me the lotto numbers. Just saying, the lottery numbers would be very helpful right now. All right. All joking aside, welcome to the stream. Happy to have you. This is Recap Thursdays, where we cover everything from U.S. and international news and talk about how I, as president, would address those things, or soon to be in Congress would address these things, and also point out the gross historical disparities thereof. So hopefully you enjoy what you hear and see, and join the fam.
Trips too. In this first year, the president visited 17 states. Virginia the most, 34 times. The president owns property there, including a golf club. Next was Florida.
Oh, so he visited... So wait. He went to Virginia to golf 34 times, and then visited Mar-a-Lago 19 times, to include meeting with the big old pedophile leadership?
Around 19 times. Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago is there. Now, the president talks to the media almost every day, including giving regular interviews. During the first 100 days of this term, he gave 26 of them, at least 16 to conservative outlets or podcasters. Joe Biden gave 22 interviews in his first year in office. The president also posts on Truth Social. That's his own social media platform.
No shit. He fucking posts on Truth Social and has caused international and domestic crises just about every single fucking day from what he's been posting.
Which he uses a lot. He posts everything from official statements to memes. In December alone, he posted 615 times. Jesus. Over the course of 5 hours in December, he posted 161 times.
Like, holy shit, 161 times in a single morning? Like, don't get me wrong, if I'm doom scrolling, I probably end up getting like 200, well, even that's too much. I probably get around 20 or 30 reposts if I'm doom scrolling and I don't have a lot to do at work. But 600 in a month? Original posts? Let alone 161 between midnight and 5 a.m.? Like, bruh, I got much better shit to do, like sleep.
Then there's the National Guard. 6 deployments to US cities were ordered for law and order purposes, the president said.
Which is the most out of any president throughout history aside from the Civil War.
4 went ahead, with troops on the streets in Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Memphis and New Orleans. In 2, Chicago and Portland, courts blocked troops from operating there.
Okay, that might have been a little bit too short because, yeah, that doesn't quite, that doesn't quite highlight the egregiousness of it, but...
Welcome to the Global News Podcast on YouTube, where we go behind the headlines. And today we're looking at Donald Trump's first year back in the White House. We're joined by our chief North America correspondent, Gary O'Donoghue in Washington. And Gary, what is the mood in America 1 year into Trump Mark II?
Well, I think that...
Well, I can tell you what it is in this house, in this part of America.
Depends where you are and who you ask. Among his supporters, many of them are very, very supportive. And indeed, their support is hardening in terms of what he's doing in the world in particular, and also here at home. For those who are opposed to him, of course, their opposition is also hardening. So this polarization that we've seen in America for many years that predates Donald Trump has solidified, has calcified in a way where there is very little common ground whatsoever between those who back the president and those who don't. And you've seen...
Which is the whole point, right? Divide and conquer. If the people are divided, they will never unite to throw you out of office. And he's right. The polarization is stark. But the thing is, true MAGA loyalists, true Trump supporters, they are not a majority. They're not a 50% split. It's more like 3 to 10% of the population is true MAGA, right? The remaining 90% are degrees of tolerating Trump or actively opposing him. And given his approval ratings, it's closer to a majority of Americans opposing him.
His approval ratings slide pretty much, but the core support that he has pretty much follows him wherever he wants to go. I'll give you a quick example. Most Republicans, or a lot of Republicans, were against any kind of adventurism in Venezuela. But as soon as Donald Trump went in and took Nicolas Maduro, that sort of turned around.
Kidnapped a foreign head of state.
And they backed it. So what he does and what he wants to do, his core support will back him.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at what he's done on the international stage. There was much talk how this presidency would mark a return to American isolationism. And yet, as you say, he's seized a foreign leader, he's bombed Iran.
Oh my God, somebody finally fucking said it. And the BBC at that. We have literally never heard, not even on Democracy Now!, say that they seized a foreign leader. Correct me if I'm wrong, Amy Goodman never uttered that phrase. She always said captured or arrested or whatever else. Seized a foreign leader. Thank you, Jesus. Somebody's at least willing to say it.
And basically gone around making lots of threats. What do you make of all that?
He would reject the idea of isolationism, and he would use the phrase America first, and that's the phrase he's always used. Now, I think, there might have been a time where that was a kind of introspective type of policy, getting jobs back, bringing jobs back to America, improving the manufacturing base, which we haven't seen much of, all that kind of thing. Whereas his view is America first is essentially subjugating other countries around the world to America's will. And that's what he's...
Up to and including subjugating states and cities to his will as well within the United States of America.
He's been doing, and that's what he's been doing reasonably successfully. But at the same time, of course, he's been putting under enormous strain, unprecedented strain, the alliances that America has traditionally relied upon. But from Donald Trump's point of view, he doesn't think those alliances are all that necessary. And that's where he really differs from previous presidents who have believed, of course, that America is the most powerful country in the world, which it is in many and most respects. But previous presidents have wanted allies. They've wanted people to come along with their view in order to project their view onto the world. Donald Trump doesn't care about other people's view.
Yeah, well, related to that, he says...
I mean, that is also an extremely accurate description of Donald Trump's first year and how he is fucking up years and years of alliance and treaty and peace. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that NATO was a paragon of virtue, because it wasn't, just like the United Nations isn't, because both of those institutions are directly responsible for the impoverization of Africa, South America, and Central Asia. Like, every poor country in the world is poor because of NATO or because of the United Nations. Of course, the direct impacts of U.S. regime change hasn't helped a goddamn thing either. But that's where we are. Pop culture, welcome to the stream. 2 news I've come to share. A judge ordered New York's 11th district to be redistricted. Shocking. The only seat held by Team Red, Maliatakis, so she's saying typically that this is an unfair power grab. He said it dilutes votes from black and Latino votes. Okay. Which is exactly what they're doing in Texas and Ohio and all the other states that redistricted on Trump's behalf. Those are also diluting black and Latino votes. The Uvalde officer got acquitted by a jury for his response to a school shooting. Yes, we did briefly covered that. I don't know that there's a main video on it for the stream, but the fact that he did get acquitted. Oh wait, did we cover that? Did she say he got acquitted? I must have missed that. Then yes, we've already covered that. Okay, and there's a video specific to it. So we will be covering that later. But yes, cowardice in America. Or at least the unilateral support of law enforcement in America. Which is funny, because if he was just a returning combat vet that did all this, or didn't respond, I should say, that veteran would have been treated much worse than the cop. So it's a very interesting set of circumstances, to be sure.
He's ended 8 wars, and yet the big one, Ukraine, which he promised to finish on day 1, is still, the fighting is still raging. What does that tell us about how he sees Russia, how he sees Europe, and indeed how he sees the rest of the world?
It's an enormous frustration to him. He makes that very clear pretty much every time he's asked about this. He blows hot and cold, particularly on Vladimir Putin. Some people who take a generous view about his presidency say that is a tactical approach that keeps his opponents and keeps his adversaries guessing, and that is, strategically a good thing to do. But as you say, the Russians in particular haven't acquiesced, haven't gone along with his view, have sort of played the game a little bit at various points in terms of negotiations, in terms of the mood music, but really haven't changed their approach or the behavior in Ukraine whatsoever. And I think he finds that enormously frustrating. At the same time, of course, he's put a lot of pressure on European countries to do more in Ukraine, and indeed they are doing that. And to some degree, you'll find people who say, look, it's long overdue that Europe started to act in a more coordinated way, that it started to put a bit more muscle behind its strategic views, this so-called strategic autonomy that people have...
Yeah, let's make Europe great again. Let's make every European country get into an arms race with each other. Because the last time that happened, it ended well for everybody, right? Mutual assured peace through might. Right? That's what happened, right? Surely, the last time Europe went through an arms race, world peace ensued immediately after. And it was only something that's at the tip of my tongue that messed it up. Oh, right. The Nazis. Right? It was the Nazis. It was only their fault that this entire arms race got blown up into World War fucking II. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, because the Japanese started attacking at the same time, the Italians started attacking at the same time, the French, the Spaniards, the British, right? All of these countries, all at once, started pooling their resources and their militaries together to wage wars, and they happened to find convenient adversaries in Germany and Italy. Oh, the last time we did arms gathering, maybe World War II was an exception, right? But the time before that, right, like the early 19th century, there was a massive, massive, massive arms race 20 or 30 years after the Napoleonic Wars. And that was all fun and games. Like, there was world peace. Napoleon was exiled. He was dead. He was no longer a problem. 30 years later, 1916, 15, 14 time frame, some schmuck gets assassinated, and then all these guns and tanks and bombs start getting... Oh, wait, shit, damn. So an arms race directly led to the First World War. Huh. And then the second global arms race led to the Second World War. Okay? So surely, third time's the charm, right? If the whole world engages in a massive military arms race, bombs, guns, planes, AI, drones, nukes, surely we will finally achieve world peace. Because the other two times was just a coincidence due to ignorance and a lack of technology, right? Of course, of course. Yeah, Scandinavians. Well, it's not even Scandinavia. It's Denmark, which isn't Scandinavia. But still, every European country, regardless, should have banded together behind Denmark and said, fuck you, and that should have never even been a talking point. And the fact that it was, and the fact that it was a serious talking point because Trump was escalating the rhetoric and drawing up plans to invade. I mean, like, this is where we're at. America was threatening to invade NATO allies. And only after extremely tense talks and establishing a league of villains did he finally drop it. And he probably hasn't dropped it on account of the whole League of Villains thing. So, I'm sure there's... Now, I don't know. We don't have to really listen to this for that much longer. I just wanted to hear what it was about. And for now, it is a pretty good synopsis of Trump's first year, but more so how it impacted... I think it was more about the international relations and not so much how it impacted at home, but still... Okay.
President Trump signed an
executive order amid high housing costs. Oh boy. Denmark is Scandinavian? Since when is Denmark Scandinavian? Well then, wouldn't that make Germany Scandinavian? Well, I'll be damned. So wait, Denmark is Scandinavian, but Finland isn't? Because I always thought Scandinavia was Norway, Sweden, and Finland. But Finland isn't part of Scandinavia? Okay. So is Iceland. But not Finland. Alrighty then. I guess I was wrong. Noted. To be fair, I grew up in America under American education, and at the time I was in school, we never took geography. Geography was no longer a class when I went to high school. So, in my defense... Well, according to Google, it's not even Finland. Which is, again, I mean, even according to Wikipedia, it's not including Finland. Oh, I see. So... It can sometimes also refer to the Scandinavian peninsula, which does exclude Denmark. So actually, I was correct. You were wrong. Or at least we were both correct, because actually, and according to my calculations, if you refer to the Scandinavian peninsula, which is what I was taught and learned in school, that did exclude Denmark and did include parts of Finland. So, ex post facto ipsum laurea est il nonsum. I was not wrong. Anywho.
Executive order aimed at stopping Wall Street investors from buying up single-family homes.
Okay, hold on. If that was the executive order, that's like the first good thing he did in his presidency.
President Trump signed an executive order aimed at stopping Wall Street investors from buying up single-family homes as the administration looks for ways to bring down housing costs. Elizabeth Schulze has more for us. Good morning to you, Elizabeth.
Good morning to you, Robin. The White House is billing this as a game changer for an unaffordable housing market. President Trump signing an executive order directing federal agencies to take steps to block Wall Street investors from buying up single-family homes. This is an acknowledgement that high housing costs are a barrier for households. Only 1/5 of home buyers in the U.S. last year were first-time buyers. Their typical age is now 40 years old. That is the highest on record. This move also aligns the president with Democrats. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says that Democrats tried to pass similar legislation last year, but it was blocked by Republicans. One recent study found that the biggest institutional investors like Blackstone own about 2% of single-family homes in the U.S., so analysts warn this is unlikely to immediately fix the housing crunch. The U.S. has a shortage of an estimated nearly 4 million affordable homes, George.
Okay.
Well, the executive order is to direct the federal agencies to look at a means of addressing this issue. Meanwhile, Democrats actually attempted to pass legislation, and it was blocked by Republicans, at which point Democrats shoved their head so far up their own asses, burying both in the sand, and did nothing about it. But, I mean, I'll give credit where credit is due. Evidently, this is the first time I'm finding myself saying, wow, Trump actually seemingly did something good. But, again, it's such a broad, gray, smoke and mirrors executive order addressing this issue that it may as well not have been written. Oh, we're still in Scandinavia. I lived in Scandinavia. I always wonder about Trump's motives, even when he does something seemingly good. Progressives called for this, and people who side with that buffoon chastise as anti-capitalism. Of course. Because, you know, capitalism is what we need to focus on, not the ability to have a roof over our heads. While 60% of the country is living in poverty, and a ever-growing number of people are homeless. But, you know, what do I know, right? Oh, speaking of political persecution.
Democrats in Minnesota are facing a growing federal scrutiny as the Justice Department investigates whether they conspired to impede ICE operations. ABC News learning Governor Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, the mayors of Minneapolis and St. Paul, and 2 counties' attorneys have been served with subpoenas by the DOJ.
The same DOJ that is in contempt of Congress for not releasing the Epstein files, among a myriad of other crimes. Just to be clear and for context.
All Democrats who have publicly spoken out against the Trump administration's crackdown on undocumented immigrants. Border Patrol official Gregory Bovino defending the conduct of agents, saying the, quote, tactics are born of necessity.
They're targeted and they're focused.
I am very glad that they picked that picture. Motherfucker. Where was it? No. Also no. Hold on a second. Okay. Gregory Bovino outfit comparison to Nazi uniform. All right. Ha! I mean, that's pretty par for the course, too. But where's the one specifically? It was similar to this uniform. But it was the sling specifically. Of course, now, what, did they already fucking bury it on the internet? I don't want to have a Google search history of Nazi uniforms, okay? Jesus Christ. Jesus fucking Christ, there it is. Holy shit. Like, seriously, why was that so difficult to find when it was... Okay, so it was the regular soldier's outfit. It was literally the regular soldier's outfit. And I guess you can't see that. And I won't be able to do a side-by-side either, will I? Here, let me down... Great, I'm going to download a fucking Nazi uniform on my computer. That's outstanding. Alright, so this, and then gotta add image. Downloads, so I can delete it real quick after it's done. Create new, browse. Okay. Just want to point out that aside from the fact that it's on the other shoulder, and that could be mirroring, that could just be straight up mirroring from the camera angle. Like, that is how the Nazi uniform for the regular soldiers was worn. And he purposely picked this. This motherfucker purposely picked the leather strap. Made that choice. And you want to tell me, you honestly want to tell me that the Nazis have not infiltrated the MAGA movement, or that the MAGA movement isn't turning into the Fourth Reich, and that there aren't Nazi overtones? Yeah. I know it seems like I'm arguing with true steel, and I'm really not. But I'm saying the people who are in denial, generally, that what ICE is doing is wrong, what more of an example do you need? This strap matches the exact Nazi uniform strap. And that was just one of the examples. Where was the... Like, the regular, just the layman's one also works. Of course, that one won't download. Jesus, the Hitler Youth. Ugh. So, where is that image? Properties, browse. I mean, it has the buckle and everything. So, okay, I'm sorry. You're right. Bovino, the commander of ICE, or Border Patrol, or whatever, is not cosplaying as a Nazi. He's cosplaying as the Hitler Youth. My apologies. It's still a fucking choice to specifically wear that. At all. Just at all. To add that to the... That is literally an extra thing to go through the epaulet. That is normally meant to be for rank and whatever else. He's using that for his strap. To highlight his affiliation with the Nazis. So, I very clearly wanted to point that out.
On individuals who pose a serious threat to this community. They are not random.
Yes, they are.
And they are not political.
Bavino
Yes,
saying
they are.
numerous criminals accused of everything from assault to rape arrested over the weekend, though providing no evidence to support that when asked by reporters. But U.S. citizens have also been swept up in the raids, and local officials say weeks
Which
of
makes
violent
it
traffic
random and
stops and
political.
other actions taken by ICE are hurting the community, even police. Brooklyn Park Police Chief Mark Bruley, along with other local law enforcement, describe multiple instances of their own officers, all people of color, being stopped by ICE agents while
Which is deliberate and random and political. It's literally political and random.
off duty.
If it is happening to our officers, it pains me to think of how many of our community members are falling victim to this every day. It has to stop.
After ICE agents pulled him from his home, shirtless in the bitter cold, only to be released without charges an hour later, Chongli Scott Tao, who's a naturalized
Again, random and political.
U.S. citizen from Laos, is speaking out about his experience.
This isn't sorry or anything. They just, okay, you're good. Just laugh. That's about it.
His family says the people agents were looking for, who federal officials say are violent criminals, never even lived in the home. Trump acknowledging that ICE has made some mistakes.
You know,
Because they are random and political.
going to make mistakes sometimes. ICE is going to be too rough with somebody, or, you know, they're dealing with rough people. They're going to make a
And then the Fourth Reich himself.
mistake. Sometimes it can happen. We feel terribly.
Democratic Minnesota State Senate President Bobby Joe Champion pushing back.
The comment made by the president is just a way of not coming full circle around admitting that ICE has been pretty destructive.
Now, as for the vice president's visit, we don't yet know who he will meet with or where, but safe to say, Michael, he will be met with protests on arrival.
We don't know who, when, or where the vice president is going to meet with, but we do know he's going to be met with protests upon arrival. You know, if we can't get good reporting, like honest journalism, like real journalism, at the very least we can get a couple of good quips, right? And I'm pretty satisfied with that one. That was a really good quip. Remember that scene from Batman Returns when Penguin said he's touring the riot scene? This reminds me of that, right? Yeah, no. It's literally the criminals going back to the scene of the crime and then bragging about it over and over and over and over again. Oh, the stocks, because it wouldn't be America and it wouldn't be politics if we weren't worried about the oh-so-important stock exchange, which has nothing to do with the economy and is a literal reflection of rich people feelings. Because when the stocks go up, they get richer, and when they go down, we lose our fucking jobs. The fact that the stock market has this stranglehold on political discourse and relevance in the economy and relevance to literally anything meaningful in this country is intense. That stranglehold, right? One of my main things is dismantling the stock market. I don't think it was. It might actually be under this one. Banking. Okay. Stock market. Did I fucking... I probably rolled it into something else. Son of a bitch. Okay, so I did talk about okay. Hold on. Federalization. Federal Reserve abolishment. Debt forgiveness? corporate ethics. Huh. Banking reform? Did I try and reshuffle all these and then ended up forgetting to dismantle the stock market? Whoops. Oh yeah, here's this one. The purpose of the Citizens Deputization Authority is to ensure that even if the efforts of the state to reform law enforcement and other policing agencies fail to meet the rigorous standards of public engagement, safety, and staying within their prescribed mandate, adhering to their protocols, so on and so forth, the CDA shall always be in place to ensure that civilians shall have the legal authority and means to forcibly hold policing agencies accountable up to and including with lethal force. So this is kind of reassuring the enforcement of the Fourth and the Second Amendment, right? Well, the Fourth through Sixth and the Second. Just no reason to bring that up during, you know, the Fourth Reich ICE raids in Minneapolis and so on and so forth. But I really do need to add the dismantling of the stock market to the website. So let me just all right. Sorry about that, folks. I must have shuffled it off or somehow. Because, as you saw, there was infrastructure and tax reform and a couple of other things in one thing. And I was trying to split them up to make it more user-friendly. And as you can see, I still have to fill in pictures and some of this stuff, too. Or, you know, maybe I can have a better default picture or something. Either which way, my apologies. But, yeah. Sure, let's talk about the stock market.
Stock market plunged amid fears of a trade war between the U.S. and its allies over Greenland. Our chief business correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis, is on Wall Street with the latest on how markets are reacting this morning. Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning to you, Michael. And yesterday was the worst day for stocks here in the U.S. since October of last year. The Dow plunging.
It was the worst day in stocks since October of last year. 4 months ago.
More than 870 points. The S&P 500, that's what's in most retirement savings accounts, as well as the tech-heavy NASDAQ, both down more than 2% each. And it all comes on the heels of President Trump's threat to impose new tariffs on European allies who oppose the United States' purchase of Greenland. European leaders have said that these tariffs would be unacceptable and in the short term would likely retaliate, potentially causing more unrest in the global markets. Here on Wall Street, what you're seeing play out is what they call the sell America trade. The U.S. dollar is lower, treasuries are selling off. Even Denmark, which opposes the U.S. purchase of Greenland, a pension operator there is selling all its holdings of U.S. treasuries, $100 million worth, due to what the pension managers call poor U.S. government finances. They've cited America's increasing debt. And of course, the United States, we as a country, we fund our daily operations in part through taxes, but also through our borrowing, through those treasuries. So they are very important to how we go forward as a country and how we pay for everyday things. One other thing to note here, Robin, you've also seen a huge spike in gold and silver prices, which are now at an all-time high. They tend to do very well in times of uncertainty, Robin.
Again, shiny rock. Worth monies. The shiny click-clacks must have the more. Like, are you serious right now? Precious metals? Okay. Aside from that, the complete divestment of the U.S. currency and dominance of the U.S. dollar in global markets in the past year is probably one of the most devastating things to happen to the U.S. in its entire history. Because the weaker we are on the international scale, the harder it is going to be for us to maintain our hegemony and empire in the first place. So, never mind, like she was saying, never mind being able to do things like industries here at home where we manufacture our own goods and supplies, or if we have to import things, God forbid, right? So here we are shooting ourselves in the foot repeatedly with a sawed-off shotgun, and we're still not taking a break. And now I have the hiccups, ironically, from drinking water. Oh, ow, I forgot today was chest day. Ow. Okay, so all I'm getting at is Trump has eroded the international trust in the United States of America as an ally, as a trade partner, and as a financial source. And we are quickly losing the respect of our military influence as well, because we are invading and occupying foreign countries. Speaking of economic crushing and... Wow, seriously?
Another big agenda item during the first year of President Trump's second term, of course, we've been saying it over and over again, tariffs. He's used levies against countries that have opposed his economic or national security priorities. Well,
Now, something worth pointing out. 96% of all tariffs in 2025 were paid by Americans. But wait a minute, I thought China was going to pay for it. I thought Mexico was going to pay for it. No, motherfucker. A tariff is an import tax. We pay it. We are importing. And do you think any of these American companies are going to bite the bullet on an increased expense or a decrease in their profits so that prices for us don't go up? Are you out of your fucking minds? We have literally been screaming at the top of our lungs for over a year that these tariffs were shooting ourselves in the foot repeatedly. And now we are finally reporting that is exactly what's happening. 96% of all tariffs, ranging from the 100% tariffs, the 50% tariffs, the 10% tariffs. 96% of all those tariffs were paid by you and me on everything from fresh bread, cups, cigars, Nutella, right? Anything that we bought in America that came from a foreign country, we paid an increased price for almost universally. And people are still like, tariffs, tariffs, let's go, tariffs. And it's like, you are literally bragging about paying more for shit out of pocket because this idiot is claiming that these are useful tools for trade agreements. They're not. I mean, I guess in a certain context they are. If you want to improve your exports of steel, you would not import. You would add a tariff on foreign steel, so companies would use American steel or something like that to encourage domestic use. But when we don't make anything, when we don't produce anything, when we barely distribute things, like, the tariff is pointless. All it does is universally raise prices because we import everything that we use. Finally, somebody admits it. You find somebody admits it.
Study by economists at the Kiel Institute for the World Economy shows how much revenue the tariffs have generated over the last year and who has paid for them. The researchers found 96% of all tariff burden was passed on to American importers. So, out of the $200 billion in tariff revenue collected by the U.S. last year, Americans paid about $192 billion.
Which means we got taxed on things we weren't being taxed on before. We have literally been paying an extra $200 billion in taxes for no fucking reason other than one man's ego and complete lack of understanding of how economics works.
Of that. This includes wholesalers, retailers, manufacturers, and direct consumers. The remaining 4%, or $8 billion, came from foreign exporters losing profits on tariffed items. The study also found exporters in other countries are not changing prices to adjust for the tariffs. Instead, the volume of items exported to the U.S. dropped. When researchers looked at India, which has a 50% tariff rate, shipments fell up to 24% when compared to other countries without those taxes. It's important to note so far, importers and manufacturers have paid the bulk of these tariff costs without passing them on to the average consumer. But there have been some increases in average prices. A Harvard Business School study from November showed tariffs increased inflation by 0.7% since March, and then imported goods were about 6% more expensive than 2024. While the U.S.'s tariff policy changed significantly in 2025, some of those adjustments could be undone by the Supreme Court. They're expected to rule soon in a case brought by small businesses challenging the
Well, it's crazy because the Supreme Court has ruled on a bunch of different things, and this administration straight up fucking ignored them. So, I mean, I don't know what to fucking tell you. Also, only 0.7% inflation? I mean, I guess if the total GDP of America is 20-something trillion, 200 billion would be about 0.7% of that, but, like, get real. Because the prices have also been going up regardless, and the tariffs have not been, I just don't feel like that 0.7% is doing enough justice to the real cost of living that has been ballooning since this idiot took office again.
The legality of President Trump's tariffs. Also of note, this week, Amazon CEO Andy Jassy said President Trump's sweeping tariffs are starting to be reflected in the price of some items as sellers weigh how to absorb the shock of added costs.
We have Mike Johnson saying yesterday, we don't have to roll the full clip, but he said he was asked by CNN's Manu Raju about
straight into the. I was like, what? What is this? That's the different person. Okay. So, anywho, breaking points. The Clinton subpoena theater, which I guess this is 8 days ago at this point, but here's
after former President Bill Clinton and former First Lady Hillary Clinton refused to appear before a Republican-led panel investigating the Jeffrey Epstein matter, today the House Oversight Committee will vote on whether to hold the Clintons in criminal contempt.
One of the proposals that Clinton made was if we would let Hillary Clinton off, then Mr. Garcia and I could travel to Mr. Clinton's house and bring one staffer and take notes, but no transcript. That's not even a thing, and you all know that. The media, I'm sure, would require a transcript. There's no real investigation without a transcript. So, you know, what few counter proposals the Clintons' massive legal team has made aren't acceptable.
All right, so let's talk about.
Yeah. Neither is Pam Bondi refusing to release the Epstein files of which you are trying to crucify the Clintons for. And yet you're not bending over backwards to hold Pam Bondi accountable, are you?
This live with CBS News congressional correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns. Caitlin, the Clintons submitted sworn declarations to that committee last week. So why does the committee still want to hear from them in person?
Yeah, and that's the Clintons' argument, that they have submitted this written testimony that they say is considered under oath, and the committee, James Comer at least, wants to see them personally. The Clintons have also argued that 7 others have been subpoenaed and have not appeared before the committee but submitted written.
I mean, honestly, why would you even bother listening to Congress when they are clearly in the back pocket of this regime and not even doing their jobs? They capitulated war powers. They're capitulating international trade, like tariffs. They're capitulating the offices and agencies that they wrote into law, such as oversight on ICE, such as oversight on the FBI, right? Let alone the fact that Congress had the ability to expand healthcare and just straight up didn't. And how many times has Congress gone on a political witch hunt against Trump's adversaries? I would be in contempt of Congress too. It's like, fuck you. Make me come down there, because you guys are useless pieces of garbage, and the only things you do try to do are empower the executive branch, which makes no fucking sense, because the Constitution clearly establishes separation of powers. So, anywho.
Testimony, and they were excused from appearing before the committee. Now, James Comer, the chairman of the Oversight Committee, essentially said, and you heard him there, that the rules should apply to everyone and that they have more questions that they want the full committee.
Yes, the rules should apply to everyone, including Pam Bondi for being in contempt due to not releasing the Epstein files. Like, are you fucking serious? Like, I'm fairly certain that's still on here. Epstein files. Epstein flight log. Okay, I have to change that to be the full public release of the investigation. Full Epstein files. I need to do the full. Let me take that. The language needs to be the full. But the fact that by the time I get elected and sworn in January of 2027, that these files are likely still not to be released and Congress will have done everything under the sun except hold this regime accountable is ludicrous. Like, how am I going to be able to do the simplest thing as soon as I'm sworn in and say, all right, thanks for swearing me in? Can we get to the point where we hold Pam Bondi in contempt by not releasing the Epstein files over a year fucking later? Or are we just going to pretend that that's not happening still? Because this is ridiculous. And it's ridiculous that it's happening now, but they're going to go on a witch hunt for being in contempt of Congress for hearings about the Epstein files. Like, that's the part that blows my mind. They are literally targeting the Clintons for being on the Epstein list and holding them in contempt for not having hearings about being on the Epstein list. But the Department of Justice, who was supposed to have them all released before the new year, we'll just forget that ever happened.
To be able to ask the Clintons. Now, he hasn't said that the Clintons are accused of any wrongdoing. There have been some photos in which the former president appeared with Mr. Epstein, but no connections have been made. Same goes for others here. The Clintons have also proposed, as you heard Comer say, having the chairman and the vice chairman come up to New York and depose him there under oath. What's significant here is that the committee appears to be moving forward. They're still marking up this bill to essentially hold the Clintons in contempt of Congress. Once that passes through the committee today, that will go on to the full House of Representatives for a vote, and that could put some Democrats in a tricky bind, especially since they've been calling for full transparency, along with a number of Republicans, for everything to come out in the Epstein files. This could put them in a particularly difficult situation if it comes up for a full vote in the House. And then if it does get a full vote in the House and approved there, then it goes over to the Justice Department. And
the same Justice Department? Hold on. So, if Congress wants to declare that somebody is in contempt of Congress, they have to hold a vote for Congress to agree on it in the first place. And then if it passes Congress, it goes to the Justice Department. So if Congress wants to hold the Justice Department accountable and it passes, the Justice Department has to then hold themselves accountable? Are you fucking kidding me? Seriously? Okay.
They will decide what the result will be for the Clintons. Remember, Peter.
We're investigating ourselves and found ourselves not guilty of contempt, despite Congress doing so. Like, are you shitting me? We are in an absolute clown show. Like, we are literally like this. I don't even think 1984 or The Man in the High Castle, I don't think either of these books can actually convey the sheer amount of corruption that is being conducted in the present in America. Because, okay. That's something. That's something. Okay. All right. If you hold somebody in contempt, it goes to the Department of Justice to see what, if any, penalties will be issued. So if you want to hold the Justice Department in contempt, the Justice Department has to figure out what, if any, penalties it's going to leverage against itself. Wonderful.
Well, just how much power can any president of the United States have over the Federal Reserve? That is really one of the questions before the justices of the U.S. Supreme Court today. President Trump's removal of Lisa Cook from the Fed board is what sparked the issue on the court today. Mr. Trump moved to fire Cook in August, alleging she lied on mortgage documents. Meanwhile, Ms. Cook denies any wrongdoing. In the room today, the man President Trump has wanted out of his position, which is Fed Chair Jerome.
Which is funny because he was the one that appointed him.
Powell. Last week, the Justice...
Which is lost in every single report that I have ever heard or seen. People do not point out the fact that Trump appointed him and now he wants him gone because he's not playing ball or whatever.
Department launched an investigation into Powell over his statements to Congress regarding renovations at the Fed's headquarters. Let's go live now to CBS News' Jolene Kent, who's listening in on this. Okay, so the Associated Press is saying that the Supreme Court is inclined to keep Lisa Cook in her position. What are you hearing as you listen into these arguments today?
We're hearing the exact same sort of tone from conservative justices as well as the more liberal justices. The idea here is, in its 112-year history, a sitting president has never fired a Fed governor before, and so there's no precedent here for this particular...
Okay, there's never been a precedent of an insurrection on the Capitol building where the supporters of the sitting president right after an election said, dang, it would be funny if this election were overturned and these there patriots would do the overturning. There's never been a precedent for that either. And yet that happened and we prosecuted them and sent them to prison. Of course, we also were stupid enough to re-elect the same motherfucker who initiated and instigated the insurrection, who then pardoned them, which is also unprecedented. That has never happened in America either. And yet, we can all agree that that's fucked up. Criminal, corruption, da-da-da-da-da. So, the fact that firing somebody from the Fed is unprecedented, that there is no precedent for it, shouldn't deter literally anybody from holding him accountable. Not rocket science.
Case. There was several comments and questions that really jumped out to us. We heard from key conservatives, including Justice Kavanaugh, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, Chief Justice Roberts. They all displayed this level of skepticism during the Trump administration's arguments that really point to us that we may be seeing an opinion that rules against the president. And the question is maybe what the margin will be, what will the vote look like, and then to what degree might they find the president to be in the wrong here. It was really interesting too.
Well, they have found the president to be in the wrong quite a bit in the past year, but they've never followed through with anything. Now that is unprecedented. Why the fuck is the Supreme Court not holding the president accountable, which is their new purview? That is literally their job as part of the checks and balances. Oh, but because Congress passed legislation that said the sitting president can do no wrong, they're going to abide by that? That in of itself is unconstitutional.
You heard from Justice Jackson as well, and she asked, what would be considered sufficient notice to remove a Fed governor? In the case of President Trump, he issued that on Truth Social. Does that person who's being targeted have to be on social media? Is that fair in due process? Another point that was interesting here, Reed, is that several justices noted sort of how unusual the nature of this is. In addition to the allegation, but the way in which it was delivered, the speed in which...
Can we all just agree the fact that Clarence Thomas is still a Supreme Court justice and not serving a life sentence or receiving the death penalty for the egregious amount of pay to play he engaged in, the sheer amount of corruption he participated in? Can we all just point out he is one of the most corrupt people in America? And second only to Justice Scalia, who is, I think, dead now, but that's also not the point. Like, bruh, that is the face of, well, it's one of the many faces of corruption in America.
It was delivered. So what we heard
not to say that this piece of shit isn't either, or if I'm not I don't. Oh wait, no. She was the Trump pick that immediately betrayed him in his first term, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't know enough about her to say how blatantly corrupt she is. But I know this motherfucker is.
Today from the Supreme Court was rather unusual, with Chair Powell in the room. And by the way, if we get an opinion soon by SCOTUS standards, that might be in a couple of months. And by then, the U.S. legislature might be considering the new Fed chair nominee from the president. So consider the timing of that as well. But of course, the main issue here is whether or not the Fed can remain an independent agency with that reliable policy that is so critical to global markets, to the American consumer and beyond.
All right, fascinating day.
Well, I mean, which one of our agencies that are supposed to be independent are no longer independent? Also, how many of our independent agencies did Doge personally dismantle, and then Trump followed through with ensuring that they couldn't come back to the forefront, right? Like, there are dozens of independent agencies in America, or at least there were. So why would the Fed be any different? Just because it's being led by private bankers? I mean, I guess that would be one of the reasons, but. Border Patrol involved in California shooting. Imagine that.
Tonight, crowds surrounding federal officers in Willowbrook, California, after a shooting involving a Border Patrol officer.
Kids are scared, that they're not going to see their parents when they return back from school.
The Department of Homeland Security saying it happened around 7 this morning when officers were conducting a targeted operation to arrest William Eduardo Moran Carballo from El Salvador. DHS saying he was involved in a human smuggling operation, had 2 prior arrests for domestic violence, and a deportation order from a judge. They say,
yeah, a deportation order from an ICE judge, which isn't the same as a judicial warrant. Also, these motherfuckers have been lying about Kilmar Abrego Garcia for a whole fucking year, or thereabouts. So why should we believe a goddamn thing they say about this guy from El Salvador?
He weaponized his vehicle and ran law enforcement. That an officer fearing for his life fired defensive shots, and Carballo was arrested after trying to flee on foot. DHS.
So imagine that. Again with he tried to ram the car into me. I had to fear for my life and shot into the vehicle. Notice how they're trying to build a narrative over and over and over again.
Saying no one was hit in the shooting, though the officer was injured. All of it as the Trump administration is also kicking off a new immigration enforcement operation in Maine.
Our communities feel anxious and fearful. This council.
Why are you allowing them to come into your state and your cities in the first place? Expel them. You have the means. You have the resources. And dare I fucking say it, you have the authority. Push them out. It's not rocket science.
Doesn't stand apart from our immigrant communities, but we stand with them.
And amid ongoing protests against immigration enforcement operations in Minnesota, the Department of Homeland Security touting new arrests, including suspects with convictions for criminal sexual conduct with a minor, assault, and homicide.
The country doesn't want to see murderers stay.
Blower alleging ICE is training officers to forcibly enter homes without a judicial warrant. Tonight, DHS responding, saying officers use administrative warrants, giving full due process, including a judge's deportation order.
Which is literally not the same thing as a judicial warrant, because apparently, and we looked into this, an administrative warrant can just be signed without any context or any sort of evidence or actual due process having been conducted, which is why a judicial warrant carries actual weight of law, because it actually follows the law. So yeah, this particular clip covered a whole lot all at once. So Border Patrol is continuously shooting into people in their vehicles and continuously claiming that those vehicles tried to ram them. So I recommend getting dash cams. Dash cam sales are going to go through the roof, apparently, right? Because I'm sure as shit not going to be accused of ramming an officer and murder to death in my own damn car if there's video footage proving that that's not what happened. We also have, again, and this is the operation
Democracy Now!
It's called Catch of the Day. A very dehumanizing operation name, just like Operation Buckeye and Operation, what was it? Roving Thunder or something like that was one of them. I don't remember where that was. I also don't remember what are they calling the operation in Minneapolis? Cold Chill? Oh, Metro Surge. Wonderful. At least that's not as dehumanizing as Catch of the Day.
DemocracyNow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh.
We turn now to Maine, where immigration agents have launched a new enforcement surge dubbed Operation Catch of the Day. ICE Deputy Assistant...
Which is, again, I've said it like 5 times already. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. My GPS records like a dash cam? Well, that's good to know. Midwest something. Oh, yeah, maybe it was Midwest Blitz. Which is, again, paying homage to what? Blitzkrieg? Which was what? The what?
Assistant Director Patricia Hyde told Fox News they're targeting some 1,400 people and have arrested at least 50 so far. Reports of ICE activity have been concentrated in the greater Portland area and the city of Lewiston, Maine's second largest city. Both cities have significant Somali populations. School officials in Portland report attendance is down overall by as much as 20% in some schools.
So when your school districts are 20% down in attendance due to fear of domestic terrorism from your own state, that's not a wake-up call? That's not a sign to stop that shit from happening in your state? And, again, mobilizing the National Guard to expel ICE, okay? All right, fine. Local, county, and state police don't have the authority to arrest federal agents. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that that is true, which it isn't, because we have absolutely seen local law enforcement arrest ICE agents that were off duty committing crimes, right? So let's not even pretend that that's the case. But let's just say if it were, the National Guard sure as hell trumps the federal agent authority. And guess what the federal agents are not going to do? Exchange fire with the National Guard, who are armed with similar things that aren't cosplay props. All I'm saying is, every single governor, every single mayor has the means to prevent these tragedies from happening, to prevent these abuses of power and violations of our rights, and not a single fucking one of them are doing it. None of them. None of them. Which means they are what? Complicit.
This is Portland Mayor Mark Dion speaking Wednesday.
Our communities feel anxious and fearful. They see this action as unpredictable and a threat to their families. Collectively and individually, we've done everything we can to assure them and that we believe in their right to be safe, and we've tried to direct resources their way.
Homeland Security.
You have the right to be safe, and we're directing resources your way. If they have the right to be safe and you're the fucking mayor, get these dangerous criminals out of your city or arrest them. This isn't rocket science, you dumb motherfuckers. Oh, that's right, because Democrats are the useful idiots. They're the pawns. And they're also the ones that think once somebody blue gets into power, they can wield the secret police force and intimidate their political enemies and subjugate the population to their will. Which means Democrats are just as culpable for this shit as the Republicans are, especially the ones calling the shots. So no, this two-party system is implementing fascism, oppression, and tyranny in the United States of America piece by piece, and we are literally doing nothing to stop it. Yes, we are protesting, as we should. And we're going to have 1 day of general strike on Friday, which is fantastic. But until the country collectively does this, 3% of the population, 11.5 million Americans, for at least 90 days, this shit isn't going to stop. And it'll probably only trigger more violence from the state. We're probably going to need 30% of the population, and not an insignificant number of them armed as a deterrent to the state from trying to violently crack down on our resistance in absolute disgust with this regime. Just putting that out there.
Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin accused Maine officials of protecting criminals. For more, we go to Lewiston, where we're joined by Safia Khalid.
That was the exact same rhetoric the Nazis were using whenever somebody was trying to protect the Jewish communities. Just throwing that out there.
Former city council member in Lewiston, Maine, who became the first Somali American to hold that role when she was elected in 2019. She now leads an advocacy group called Community Organizing Alliance, which is responding on the ground right now to the ICE surge. Safia, welcome to Democracy Now! It's great to have you with us. Can you talk about what ICE is calling, I mean, the horror of playing on the seafood industry of Maine, Operation Catch of the Day?
Oh. It's dehumanizing, but it's also a pun on Maine's seafood industry. Just like in Ohio, the Buckeye State, it's Operation Buckeye.
What's happening?
Yes. Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for having me. You know, the operation name that they're using is really dehumanizing. It is creating fear and intimidation among our communities. Parents have not been able to pick up their kids from school. They have not been able to go grocery shopping. The streets are completely empty. Downtown Lewiston is completely empty, especially our Lisbon Street, which is our main street area. No one is going to the stores. Restaurants are closed because people are really in fear, and we are urging people to stay home and do not open the door to anyone who they do not know.
In America, in modern times, in the information age, these ICE agents have arrived, and within hours, businesses are shutting down, school attendance is decreasing, right? And people are being told, being warned and advised to stay in their homes and not answer the door for masked people masquerading as federal agents, because there is not an insignificant number of people masquerading as agents and then causing even worse harm. So, again, this isn't just disrupting immigrant communities, it's disrupting entire communities, entire cities, entire counties, entire states. And the fact that we're just ignoring it, the fact that for most people, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, because it's not happening in your fucking backyard yet. And the key word is yet.
And Safia, if you could talk about, for people who aren't familiar with the demographics of Maine, and in particular Lewiston, who's being most directly targeted?
Yeah, you know, Lewiston is home to a large population of naturalized Somali Americans, and you know, like Minneapolis in the Twin Cities, he is targeting Somali Americans, but they're also targeting the larger immigrant population here in the Lewiston urban area, in the greater Portland area.
And have you heard directly from people who have been targeted? Have you been speaking to people on the ground?
Yes, we are on the ground helping folks. Yesterday, I was, parents called me to get their kids from school because one parent, for example, an ICE agent knocked her door. They're going door to door here in Lewiston.
By the way, going door to door violates the Fourth Amendment. That's literally looking for a crime or looking for a reason to engage in policing activities, which is explicitly forbidden in the Fourth Amendment, right? Like, so let's find the fourth here. You know, I should probably put these in order. The right of the people to secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So it is verbatim to be secure in their person and houses and papers. Now, granted, I'm pretty certain this language, the papers, means more like legal documentation, not necessarily identifying documentation, but identifying documentation happens to be legal. So the founding fathers inadvertently anticipated immigration raids in the Fourth Amendment, which is currently being violated in every capacity. The secure aspect, the warrants aspect, the probable cause aspect, the supported by oath or affirmation, i.e. administrative versus judicial, and again, just not having a direction at all whatsoever. So the entirety of the Fourth Amendment is being unilaterally ignored by ICE agents, and it is becoming more and more aggressive.
Of course, in other parts of the state, but when she opened the door, they said that they were police officers. They didn't identify themselves as a federal agent. They didn't identify themselves as ICE agents. They also had plain clothes too.
Yeah, impersonating a police officer when you're supposed to be a federal agent. I mean, if you're a federal agent, doesn't that already supersede being a police officer? So why would you masquerade as a police officer? And remember, we found out you can just get a Velcro police tab for $10 on the internet. So anybody can pretend to be a cop and have identifying markings.
So they're disguising themselves as regular police officers. And when she opened the door, they immediately arrested her, right? This is an older Somali woman.
Which, oh my God. I keep pausing this, and I think she's been talking for 30 seconds. Opening the door and immediately having them cross that threshold without a warrant is illegal. Let alone arresting you on the spot without a single charge or your Miranda rights being read. None of that. But Maine is a duty to retreat state without defend your castle laws. Plus, this was an elderly Somali woman, so what is she doing? Gonna answer the door with a non-prop version of this? I'm like, oh, hello, officer. How can I help you today? She would have gotten shot on the spot. So, like, there's not, like... Oh, and then Ring cameras are apparently going the way of capitulating to law enforcement agencies as well. So, even if she had a Ring camera and was trying to do the intercom thing, that might not even be helpful anymore either.
They arrested her in front of her kids, didn't even let her get her jacket or prepare for anything, and put her in a vehicle and drove away. There's also another woman who was kidnapped from her home. They knocked the door.
Notice how they're targeting women and elderly? Women and elderly are being targeted by the American Gestapo and are being kidnapped and trafficked to God knows where to have God knows what done to them, when there have already been credible reports of ICE agents abusing detainees. So I don't even, Like, I cannot put a strong enough point on that.
As well. She looked through the window. She didn't see anyone. And then she peeked. She opened the door just a little bit, but they were hiding somewhere. And they immediately grabbed her and took her away. One woman was brought back to her home, but the other woman were still looking for her.
A growing number of U.S. citizens have been swept up by ICE as they surge enforcement around the country. I wanted to go to this Somali American from St. Paul, Minnesota, who says she was called a racial slur by an ICE agent before being pushed to the ground. This is Nasra Ahmed, a U.S.-born citizen with no criminal record, detained for 2 days by ICE.
I am proud to say that I've survived ICE. We were both crying together. We were holding each other tight. And I'll never forget, like, the fear that we both felt in our hearts that day.
She still has bandages on her forehead. And I wanted to ask you,
I don't know how many different ways we can say that the Second Amendment exists for a reason. And if we continue to allow the Fourth to be violated, and these cities and these state governors and leaders continue to allow their citizens to be terrorized, I don't really know what other options there are other than, sure, fine, a general strike. But we need to get on that general strike sooner than later then, because if we're just going to allow communities of color to get kidnapped and trafficked unilaterally and allowing these police forces to just hide and try and entrap people by knocking on their... Like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm not gonna lie, I'm a bit too spun up on this subject. I'm glad this is a cosplay prop. Let's just put it that way. I'm very happy this is cosplay.
Afia, how do you inform people of their rights when you get this latest information? The Associated Press reporting ICE is asserting ICE officers have the power to forcibly enter homes without a judicial warrant, and what legal experts have said is a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment. What do you tell people to do as we wrap up?
Well, the thing is, if a white woman was shot in the face, none of us are safe.
Let's hear that again.
People to do as we wrap up.
Well, the thing is, if a white woman was shot in the face, none of us are safe.
I mean, Anna, write that down. That needs to be part of our campaign material. If a white woman was shot in the face, none of us are safe. Vote Ronan to make sure that never happens again, or whatever, right? But that quote right there, if a white woman can get shot in the face, none of us are safe. That needs to be campaign. In fact, that quote needs to be on our campaign page circulating daily as well. And I am being 100% serious. And in fact, I'm going to write that down as well so I don't forget about it. Messaging and framing. Campaign ideas. Here we go. Like, I don't even... Truer words have literally not been spoken.
Right? We are trying to really just educate people as much as we can. We're telling people, do not open your doors. And people are scared. They say, I cannot stay home. I cannot not go to work. But we're trying to put some operations.
Right, because the other problem is we can't even resist. We can't even hide from the Gestapo kicking in our doors because we still need to go to work and eat, which means we are still vulnerable because capitalism makes sure we are vulnerable. Of course, if we were in a utopian Star Trek society, we wouldn't be dealing with Gestapo secret police kicking in our doors in the first place. But I digress.
And some systems in place We have partners in Minneapolis and in Chicago and across the country who have seen these attacks in their communities, and they have been tremendous help and a resource to us. So we're learning from our comrades across the country, but it is a frightening and a scary time for all of us, for us to urge people to stay home and do not leave your home. It's a scary time we live in.
I want to thank you.
In America, we are being told to stay at home in America. Land of the free, home of the brave, home of the Second Amendment. We need to move on from ICE because I might go on a road trip at this rate, and that's not going to be good for anybody. Well, this could be
Trump and ICE have lost.
It's not even a revolt. Talk about the most misleading headline ever. The police chief said, I'm very scared that they're going after our police, and it pains my little achy breaky heart what they could be doing to civilians. We got to do something about this. I don't know, Mr. Police Chief. Maybe arrest the motherfuckers. Crazy thought, I know. Arrest the criminal scum that's terrorizing your... You know what? Yeah, we need to move on from ICE.
We have some news right now. There's serious concern about Donald Trump's mental fitness, with even one member of Congress now saying the 25th Amendment should be invoked. Why? Well, if you look at overnight what Donald Trump did on Truth Social, it didn't really seem fully normal. He was on his way to Davos, Switzerland. He posted a whole number of times on Truth Social, but here's where it got interesting. He posted 2 private messages with world leaders on Truth Social, the first being Emmanuel Macron from France, the second being NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. He then posted an image of himself sitting in the Oval Office with world leaders from Europe, and then there was a map showing the American flag over Greenland and Canada. He also, once again, on the Nobel Prize, was asked on the tarmac, he says, quote, "If anyone thinks Norway doesn't control the Nobel Prize, they're just kidding." And then he says, "I don't care about the Nobel Prize," which we know is just simply not true. So, yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, all right. Aaron Paranas, I mean, I can do the same thing. Is that what, should I just set up my phone on a tripod and turn against the wall and do reels like this? Is that the... If he's doing this, then I may as well start doing this. And this isn't even considered a short. All right. There we go. All right. I'm going to bookmark this. And I'm going to reference this particular one.
Yasmin Ansari, one...
let's see. Where's the video ideas? Bam. Okay. So yeah, the 25th needs to be invoked. And we did cover that a bit earlier today. Okay, you know what? It's our favorite polls guy, Harry Enton.
New polling,
the guy that we love to hate
shows
to love.
Democrats are feeling highly motivated to get out and vote later this year, and that could be bad news for Republicans who are hanging on to a slim majority in the House. So let's go to CNN's chief data analyst, Harry Enton. What exactly are these poll numbers telling us, Harry?
Yeah, oh my goodness gracious. I can't believe it. The first year of the Trump administration already pretty much done. We got a midterm election coming up in November. And what are the poll results showing us? Well, you know, that generic congressional ballot, right? That's matching up the Democrats versus the Republicans and the choice for Congress. And what do we see? We see the Democrats with an advantage on that generic ballot. Right now, they're ahead by 5 points. And what I think is so interesting.
Didn't the Dems fail to flip the Congress in 2018? Like, I'm pretty certain the Democrats failed to flip the House in 2018. But I digress.
Interesting is you look at this 5-point advantage, and it's the same exact advantage that Democrats held among registered voters when you went back to Trump's first term in January of 2018 at this point in the cycle. And why is that so notable? Because I don't know if you remember, Pam, but back in 2018, Democrats were looking to pick up the House majority. Republicans held, of course, the House of Representatives, and Democrats were able to net themselves 40 seats in the House come November. Now, I'm not quite sure they're going to be able to net that many seats this time around, but at least according to our...
Which is pretty telling. Okay, so they got 40 seats. All right, so I guess they did get their majority then. So I digress. If the Dems can't get at least 40 seats, when this regime and this Congress are actively dismantling the Constitution, our democracy, and our institutions in real time, in 4K, and lying to us about it repeatedly day in after day, on top of invading cities, terrorizing communities, like, then that just goes to show how utterly fucking useless the Democrats are, even to people who are desperate and afraid. So no, I genuinely don't believe that the Democrats will regain even control of the House at this rate, because they have proven time and time and time again over the past 365 days that they are going to do nothing to actually stop this administration, because they had a whole record shutdown where they capitulated, buckled, and broke at the very end and got nothing for their troubles. People are going to remember that. People are very much so going to remember that. And if they don't remember that, the Republicans are going to remind them.
CNN polling at this point, the Democrats' lead looks very much the same now as it did back during the 2018 cycle, and that's good news for Democrats. But that's not the only piece of good news in this poll, because, of course, if you know anything about midterm elections, you know that it's about turnout, right? Turnout is lower in a midterm election than it is in a presidential year, and it's all about that motivation to go out there and vote. And this is where I think it gets really interesting for Democrats. So if we break it down by motivation to vote, right? If you look at voters overall, Democrats have that 5-point advantage, which I mentioned. But look at those extremely motivated to turn out and vote. Those who would crawl over those hot coals to go out there and vote. And what do we see? We see the Democrats up by 16 points among those extremely motivated to vote. This makes a lot of sense to me, Pam. Why does it make a lot of sense?
I mean,
because look at the...
When there's a 6% margin for error, and the fact that 10% of Dems being extremely motivated would be typical of any sort of organization, 10% of any organization is fanatical towards that organization. That's literally what you would expect. Okay. He has another poll, though.
Rory, we're talking about these brand new CNN polling numbers out just today on the president's approval rating, which is low, just 39%. He's underwater on all the issues. Inside this poll, there are some rather notable shifts, in some cases, some historic metrics. With us now, CNN chief data analyst Harry Enton. Harry, we talked about voters saying that the president's term so far is a failure, but put that in perspective here.
Yeah, it turns out that love or presidencies are not better the second time around, according to the American people. Because what are we talking about here? Trump's term was a success or a failure. You know, back in April of 2024, when it came to term number one, the majority of Americans said that Donald Trump's first term in office was a success.
That was 4 years after his presidency. Of course, you remember things in the past better than what they are. That's what nostalgia is. That's why people are trying to make America great again, like the 1950s and 60s, disregarding the fact that unions were strong, corporations were ludicrously taxed, and people of color were treated like slaves still. So... no, that doesn't even make sense. Why would you conduct the poll in 2024?
55%. That's a big reason why he was able to get a second term in office. They look back fondly upon his first term in office. But now come to this side of the screen. Now, after term 2, year 1, how do Americans view it? Look at that. A failure. Fail. 58%, just 42% say a success. These numbers look a lot more like what it did about 6 months into Trump's term number 1 than it did looking...
Yeah, that is exactly the apples to apples comparison you need to make. You need to do term 1, year 1, You need to do those polls, and then you need to compare them to term 2, year 1. Those are the polls you need to be comparing, not 4 years after the fact during a very heated presidential cycle where he was rallying his base. Are you fucking kidding me? Right. Americans have the memory of a fucking goldfish.
Back upon the entirety of Trump's term number 1, which of course gave him that second term in office. The clear majority, 58%, nearly 3 in 5 Americans say it is a failure.
Okay, so this number, 58% saying it's a failure 1 year into a second term. Where does that rank historically?
Okay, where does it rank historically? Now, this is a little bit difficult, right? Because Trump has had 2 presidencies, right? Other people who are, say, a year in a term number 2, in fact, have had a continuous term. But we're going to try and do it for you right here, which is essentially, okay, term or terms have been a failure, about a year in a term number 2. You see this for Donald Trump right here. 58% term number 2 first year. 58% say failure. Come here. Look at this. Who's the next closest? George W. Bush. 52% said his presidency had been a failure about a year into term number 2. So Trump is even worse than George W. Bush after Katrina, after a long period in the Iraq War. And this is really, really bad when you compare it to George W. Bush. Barack Obama was 48%. And then Bill Clinton way down here at 26%. Of course, his approval was sky high. But the bottom line is this. About a year into term number 2, Trump's numbers look worse than any other president in which either CNN or the Pew Research Center has asked this question. The only one really close, Joe Biden, if you look here, was at 57% failure in term 1, however. Term 1, this is term 2, but he's even doing a point worse, though, within the margin of error.
So historically bad for presidents in their second term here. So what do people think it will be like when they look back at the second term?
Yeah, okay. So, you know, we're talking about this, and we're talking about 58% who say that Trump is a failure a year into term number 2, and that is historically bad. But I think the other thing that is so important is Trump wants to make his mark in history, right? He wants to fundamentally...
Ladies and gentlemen, Trump wants to make his mark in history. Funny you should mention that. I am tickled to hear you say that, because Trump is absolutely going to make his mark in history. It is going to be a stain and a reminder, with the added emphasis of, instead of doing Operation Paperclip for the Nazis, or instead of giving the gentle glove slap on the wrist treatment to the Confederates who actually waged a war of treason against the United States and then lost, we're not going to do that same mistake 3 times in a row. We're not going to allow Nazis into our government, and we're not going to give a slap on the wrist to traitors. We're going to hold them accountable. And that stain is definitely going to be the legacy of this administration. All right. We got 30 minutes left, and quite a lot on the stream list. Sorry, Anna. What is this?
So this is a significant potentially development. Let's put D1 up on the screen. The reason that this is worth flagging is because party identification was a major indicator in the Biden era that Republicans were really on the upswing. And so you can see for, there in 2024, as Trump's campaigning, you had Republican Party identification beating Democratic Party identification. That was really a new development. Now that trend has reversed, and you've got Democratic Party identification at 48%, Republican...
Which is funny, because even if that's true, and let's just say for the sake of argument it is true, Republicans and Democrats, registered voters, account for, I think, a grand total of 20% of all registered voters. It's not even 25%, 25%, and 50% unaffiliated. It's like 12 and 13, or 15 and 14. It's not a significant, it is not a majority of voters anymore who are genuinely party affiliated or genuinely admitting with their allegiance. But, sure, worth noting. What is this?
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report.
The Board of Peace. Oh, well, you know what? I said we would...
A verdict in the trial of a former Uvalde, Texas police officer. Adrian Gonzalez was just found moments ago not guilty on charges of...
Sorry, I thought the stream froze on us. My bad.
Of child abandonment and endangerment. You can see him there appearing to be very emotional, hugging. Now, he was one of the first officers to arrive on scene at Robb Elementary during the 2022 shooting that left 19 students and 2 teachers dead. That verdict was just read. And let's get right to NBC's Priscilla Thompson, who's there in Texas following this story. A stunning moment, Priscilla.
Yeah, Liz, stunning indeed, and a very emotional moment for Adrian Gonzalez. As soon as that not guilty was read, you saw him put his head down. He looked visibly emotional, and you saw that emotion continuing as people came up and began to hug him, and he stood. And this is the end. After 2 weeks of testimony from survivors, from fellow law enforcement who were on the scene with him, this jury coming back after more than 7 hours, or about 7 hours of deliberation, just over 7 hours, saying not guilty on all 29 counts of child endangerment. We know that they had been asking questions over the past several hours. They wanted a monitor, presumably to look at video. There was a lot of body cam that was played in this case and dash cam that was played in this case. They also asked for a marker and easels, and they wanted to see a list of all of the witnesses and all of the evidence. And I spoke with some of the families of the victims as this deliberation was going on, and some of them saw that as a sign that the jury was really taking their time with this, looking at all of the evidence, and they felt that they were hopeful that they might get a guilty verdict today. And you can see some of those families on the screen there. I know as that verdict was read, they were sitting just like that, very stoic there, but some of them telling me that they were hopeful that they might get this guilty verdict.
You got people claiming that Sandy Hook was a hoax. You got juries acquitting officers for being cowards. What's the fucking point of having police officers at schools then if they're not even obligated to act during a school shooting? Like, are you fucking kidding me right now? We are literally the biggest bootlicking country in probably history. Because I don't even the Germans weren't licking the boots of the Nazis as enthusiastically as Americans lick the boots of any authority in this country. Oh, why not? Was some of the lower hanging fruit of dystopian nightmare.
It happened so fast.
So I was here preparing some batter for French toast and really started to feel unwell. So I just kind of grabbed on to the countertop a little bit.
Billino says he didn't have time to think.
Had you ever felt anything like that before?
Absolutely not. I had no idea what was happening, and it was scary.
No time to ask about the ambulance service taking him from his church in Springfield, Massachusetts, to the hospital.
By the time I reached here, I couldn't stand anymore. So I was laying flat on the concrete when the ambulance pulled in.
The source of the pain last May, 2 kidney stones. The source of the pain today, a surprise bill from the nation's largest private ambulance company, AMR, American Medical.
Another private firm in our healthcare system fucking people over? What?
Response.
And then I got this letter in the mail from AMR, the ambulance provider, stating that my insurance provider was declining payment and that potentially I'd be responsible for a little over $5,800 in ambulance expense.
It was a 6-mile ride. That's almost $1,000 a mile.
That's a very aggressive rate, yes.
His insurer, Cigna, agreed to pay $854, leaving Enos with a balance of more than $5,000.
What's the fucking point of health insurance in the first place, mind you, if they're not even going to cover a majority of the bill? Hey, give us a premium of $300 to $700 a month, a $3,000 deductible, and then when you get a bill anyway, we're only going to pay a fraction of it. Excuse me? Make that make sense. Why would anybody defend health insurance at all in lieu of universal health care where you have zero out-of-pocket expenses without even needing a middleman? You wouldn't need health insurance to cover a fraction because it would be covered outright because they would be government employees offering a government service that you already paid for through your tax dollars. Unbelievable.
$1,000 because the ambulance company is out of network.
What did you think when you saw that bill?
An ambulance company is out of network. An ambulance that you called 911 for, the ambulance that arrived was out of network. And people really want to defend health insurance? Are you fucking insane? Are you fucking kidding me? Again, we are the greatest bootlicking society in all of history.
I thought it had to be a mistake.
In 2022, Congress passed a law to protect people from surprise medical bills, but ground ambulance charges were left out. 22 states have moved to remedy the exclusion, but Massachusetts isn't one of them. Enos decided to fight.
It's literally taken hours and hours over weeks and months to deal with this, and it's stressful.
AMR and Cigna blamed each other. Cigna said ambulance companies are among the most egregious billers in the healthcare system, and
Imagine
that many
that.
choose not to contract with health insurers, which allows them to charge significantly higher rates. AMR told...
Honestly, how is this news reel not the number one? 7,000 views! 7,000 views! How is this not the most viral video in the history of viral videos? Are you serious right now? If I wasn't already radicalized against private insurance and capitalism, and I just was a normie up until this point hearing that shit, I would be immediately calling my insurance company, hey, are we partnered with any ambulance things? No? Oh, okay. And you're charging me how much? I'd be losing my fucking mind.
Told NBC News Enos' situation was the result of the complexity of the system and proved the need.
There is no complexity of the system. The system is broken, the system is greedy, and the system is corrupt. That's not complex. That's pretty fucking simple. It's the fact that that's the system and that it isn't being dismantled with extreme prejudice that's the problem.
For patients to advocate on their behalf.
Basically, my bill establishes a copay.
Massachusetts State Senator Michael Moore wants to end surprise charges.
You call EMS, you pay $100.
Whether or not the ambulance service is in my health insurance network or not.
Your cost is $100.
That is literally 1 or 2 steps away from universal health care outright. We're going to mandate, as the state, ambulance rides are only $100, regardless of network. Buddy, take the next fucking step and make healthcare a state program again.
So who pays the rest?
The rest we picked up by the insurance provider.
In Bill Enos' case, after NBC News asked about his bill, Cigna agreed to cover the majority of it.
After this aired on the news, they changed their tune. They'll cover a majority of it. But that's still $1,600 out of pocket for an ambulance ride.
I think if nobody pushes and people get tired of chasing, they'll just give up and pay it.
But you were not going to do that.
I didn't feel comfortable being taken advantage of like that. I think it needed to be.
And there it is. If people are unwilling to resist, they will be taken advantage of. Sound familiar? Jack Smith. Yeah, I think we need to watch this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, you've said several times in your deposition that you believe that the facts and the law, your interpretation of the law, would lead to a conviction of President Trump. Is that correct?
Yes.
And did you believe that same thing, that your interpretation of the law, your reading of the law, would have...
Seriously, what is with the volume? Like, I can barely fucking hear this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Smith, I want to discuss Volume 2 of your report, which summarizes the findings of your investigation into President Trump's hoarding of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago and his efforts to obstruct the FBI's investigation. Mr. Smith, is it generally the practice for a special counsel's report to be made public to the American people?
I want to say first, I'm limited what I can say about Volume 2 because of Judge Cannon's order. I can say generally that with respect to special counsels, there are regulations that direct a special counsel to draft a report. Whether that report becomes public is determined, the Attorney General has the authority to determine that.
To the best of your knowledge, was Special Counsel Mueller's report made public in full?
I know it was made public. I'm not sure if it was made public in full.
What about Special Counsel Hur's report?
My recollection is his report was made public in full. I believe that's correct.
And Special Counsel Weiss's report?
I do not know.
Okay. Now, I understand that the district judge, Aileen Cannon, the Trump appointee who oversaw the case in Florida, issued a gag order that prevents you from discussing any parts of the classified documents investigation that is not already public. I understand that, including your findings that you laid out in Volume 2 of that report. Am I correct that the reason your report is not available in full to the public is because of this gag order?
I wrote a report. The Attorney General, it was submitted to him. I understand generally that there's been litigation about whether this report would be public or not. I have not been a party to that litigation. I just know that there is an order, and I know the Department of Justice, the current Department of Justice, has interpreted that order in a way that I cannot speak about anything that could possibly be in that report and its findings.
And when Judge Cannon issued that gag order, she cited pending cases against Trump's co-defendants. Is that correct?
I'm sorry?
When Judge Cannon issued the gag order, she cited pending cases against Trump's co-defendants. Is that correct?
That's my recollection.
Are those cases still pending?
No, they're not.
No, they're not. So there is no reason, from where I sit, for this important information to be not made public. At this point, I want to turn now to President Trump's attacks on you. Trump has a playbook for how he handles people who try to hold him accountable. In August 2023, right after your office indicted him, President Trump shared that playbook on social media for everyone to see. He wrote, "If you go after me, I'm coming for you."
Okay, I guess we're not going to get good detail, and I had to turn this up extremely loudly, so I can only imagine how loud it is for you guys, because I don't think I can control the output volume on stream for you. But what I'm gathering is that Miss Ballant is trying to lay the groundwork that Jack Smith was going out of his way to be transparent, and that there was a gag order issued against him from, well, being transparent, and that he stands by all of the research and gathering and this, that, and the other that would have led to Trump's not just indictment, which he did indict Trump, but also to find him guilty, sentenced, and, you know, charged and sentenced, or whatever the fucking pattern is thereafter, right? So, again, that only made 11,000 views. This one...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, you've said several
barely
times in your
made
deposition
1,500 views. This one...
Generally yields back. Gentleman from
also
North
barely
Carolina,
1,500 views.
Recognized.
Mr. Smith,
So, the fact that there is... that Jack Smith, the guy who indicted Trump in the first place under the Biden administration, who still stands by that research and those charges and all the information backing it up, is barely getting thousands of views, just goes to show how heavily this Congress is engaging in protecting this regime. Trump. Like, Jack Smith should literally be getting invited by Congress to file those charges in a functioning democracy, of course. So, I mean, something to put on the back burner. I need to get his contact information so that when I'm a congressman, I can be like, hey, can you just do the thing? Help me help you do the thing. All right. Jesus. So
President Trump's demands for
we have alt-right extremism rising in Britain.
Greenland have triggered an unprecedented confrontation with Europe. Today at Davos, he said Europe is, quote, not headed in the right direction. His administration has repeatedly made it clear it views many European governments as hostile and has encouraged far-right populist parties as alternatives. Now Britain is seeing the dramatic rise of its own radical right-wing movement that closely follows the MAGA movement in the U.S. It's backed by powerful allies of President Trump and is pushing for its own Trump-style revolution. Our Patrick Reevell reports from London.
It was a protest that shook Britain. According to police, 150,000 people flooding central London last September for an anti-immigration nationalist march.
Too many migrants. Absolutely. We absolutely agree with that. The migrants need to be stopped.
And at the heart of it, this man, who calls himself Tommy Robinson.
Are we just going to ignore... Okay, so
Stop.
Racist...
And at the
but are we going to ignore the bishop? Or cardinal? So here's the thing. The Catholic Church wears the little head thing, right? And the pink and the red ones are for high-ranking muckety-mucks in the Catholic Church. Are we just going to ignore that? Because I don't believe that's a yarmulke. I don't believe. Maybe it was a yarmulke. Wait, no. You see the little felt?
Part of it.
Yeah. Dang it.
Absolutely agree with that. The migrants need to be stopped.
And at the heart of it.
Dang it. Okay. He did have the little felt thingy. Right? This little deal right. Damn it. So, right here. You see that little felt thingy? That little nub? That's a bishop. Okay, so pink is for bishop. There is a bishop in the crowd decrying immigrants in the UK. A bishop of the Catholic Church. The Church of Christ. Blessed are the merciful. Love thy neighbor. Honor the immigrant. A bishop. And we're not going to point that out, but we're going to point out the neo-Nazi instead? Okay.
This man, who calls himself Tommy Robinson.
They managed to silence us for 20 years with labels. Racist, Islamophobe, far right. They don't work anymore.
They called us racist. They called us Islamophobes, and they called us the alt-right extremists, but that shit doesn't work anymore because we're proud of it now? I mean, like, we're embracing it? I mean, okay, that's certainly something.
Has well and truly burst.
A radical right-wing movement is growing in Britain that is allied closely with the MAGA movement in the United States.
I think England is heading towards a civil war.
The UK culturally felt like America before Donald Trump went down the golden escalator. They're in the abyss.
Why is Charlie Kirk being involved in this video? He's fucking dead.
Powerful American conservative figures are backing the movement that's based on...
Charlie Kirk was a key player in why Trump became Trump in the first place. So if this is supposed to highlight like the the dangers of alt-right extremism, why the fuck would you air Charlie Kirk?
Christian nationalism and claims the UK is overrun by Muslim immigrants. Elon Musk addressed September's rally by video link.
Whether you choose violence or not, violence is coming to you. You either fight back or you die.
Says the wealthiest, most insecure immigrant of all time. God damn it, I fucking hate Elon Musk. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Elon Musk ends up on the peace board or whatever. I wouldn't be surprised. Because those are two peas in a pod right there. Both of them are narcissistic authoritarians who are racist motherfuckers. Unbelievable, to say the least. The very least. Okay. Peru's president facing impeachment. Again, countries that have struggled with U.S. regime change and dictators and this, that, and the other somehow manage to enforce democracy better than America does. But I don't know. I don't know the whole story here, so let's listen.
President José Geri is under fire, but he's fighting back. He asked to appear before lawmakers to explain why he held secret meetings with a Chinese businessman who has multi-million-dollar dealings with the government, including the pending construction of an energy plant.
I haven't lied to the country or committed any irregular or illegal act. It's clear and evident there is an intention to want to cause harm beyond me, to try to generate instability and alter the electoral process that must be impartial.
Some legislators insist the president is involved in corruption.
This latest political crisis began here at this Chinese restaurant where President Geri arrived in the middle of the night in December. It was not part of his agenda as president, and
So wait a minute. Arriving in places in the middle of the night as not part of an agenda is suspect for corruption? So then wouldn't Trump arriving clandestinely at Epstein's apartment building in the middle of the night to diddle children not be the same type of suspect? Sure, he wasn't president back then, but he was still doing it. What do I know? Oh my God.
There was another moment in Trump's World Economic Forum Davos speech that didn't get quite as much attention, but I think it was, he actually wanted it to, and it just, you know, with all the Greenland stuff, it didn't really get picked up, but where he threatens prosecutions against supposed people who were involved in quote unquote rigging the 2020 election. Let's go ahead and take a listen to this.
It's a war that should have never started, and it would rig the borders in a land has seen.
Then this didn't have to be something we think about anymore. No, no, no. The president still very much has this on his mind. There was another moment where he got asked about
many reasons why to invoke the 25th or to impeach. I mean, ideally impeach because it gets rid of the entire cabinet, but I digress.
Whether or not they had learned anything from Maduro about this, you know, supposed Venezuelan election voting machine fraud rigging situation. Gave an interesting response there as well. Let's take a listen to that.
And you spoke earlier about the 2020 election. Now that Maduro is in U.S. custody and he was criminally charged, has any more information emerged that you could share with us regarding Venezuelan election software and Venezuelan ties to tampering with the 2020 election? And would you consider speaking to Maduro personally?
So now we're blaming Venezuela for rigging the elections? That doesn't even make sense. If Venezuela rigged the elections again... Okay, no, I guess then, yeah, if it rigged it against Trump, that would be a vendetta. Okay, I see.
In prison in New York to get some answers on Venezuela's involvement with the 2020 election.
No, I don't think I would be doing that. I think my lawyers would be very unhappy if I did. Yeah, they've learned some things.
Even Trump is like, what are you talking
But then he goes, no, they've learned some things. You know what? I don't, the question is obviously insane, but there is a non-insane version of it, because one thing that has been actively floated, and including by like someone in Trump's DOJ, is that maybe there's a deal to be made with Maduro and he can turn over, reveal the truth about the rigged
Venezuelan dominions.
Yes.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. They're trying to manufacture a cover-up, or they're trying to manufacture a lie that justifies the other lie that the election was rigged against him, when he literally rigged the 2024 election with Elon Musk, who accidentally Freudian slipped doing so within the first 24 hours of getting elected, and then repeated it time and again as they started to clash. And no investigations ever came up because of that. Again, impeachment would be ideal. 25th Amendment is wonderful. Checking into the election integrity, even better. Even better. Granted, not that I want Kamala in office, but you get the idea. So in the last 5 minutes, let's do some good news, yeah?
Here's some good news you might have missed to start your 2026. Scientists in Japan just created a plant-based plastic that completely dissolves in salt water within hours without leaving any microplastics behind. The hole in the Antarctic ozone layer is the smallest it's been in 5 years, confirming Earth's protective shield is on track to full recovery. The largest wildlife
If we don't fuck it up before then.
Wildlife crossing in North America just opened in Colorado, and both Democrats and Republicans are now pushing to make wildlife crossing funding permanent nationwide. Norway agreed there'll be no deep sea mining in the Arctic for the next 4 years, with the hope that eventually it will be for good. Britain set a new wind power record, generating enough electricity to power over 23 million homes, around 3/4 of the nation's housing. Coho salmon have returned to California's Russian River for the first time in over 30 years, thanks to improved fish passages, habitat restoration, and salmon rescue missions. The Democratic Republic of Congo banned all capture, trade, and possession of African grey parrots, one of Africa's biggest wildlife conservation wins. And Kenya just opened.
Yeah, what is the deal with so many animals from Africa being taken out of their environment to be kept as exotic pets? Like, what's up with that? Like, I don't understand. Like, yes, birds and parrots, they're cool and all that, but like, to the degree that we endangered them because of the novelty of having them. That's crazy to me.
In the world's largest wildlife sanctuary that's about twice the size of London to help save the critically endangered black rhinos. Tap like and follow to keep the good news on your feed in 2020.
You know what, Sam Bentley? Did I sub to you? You know what? You're going to get a sub, because at least you're trying to bring a little bit of spark joy. Here's some good news. Land back.
Just an hour ago, I was facing chances of being deported.
Whoa! I thought this was a good news. Tribal members moving back to Navajo Nation amid ICE activity. That's not good news. I thought that was the land back. Oh, I'm sorry. That was the next. The Yurok tribe gets ancestral lands back that were taken over 120 years ago. 47,000 acres around the Klamath River were formally returned, the largest land back deal in the state's history. As in kind of a context there, 47,000 acres is about the size of Lancaster, Ohio. The entire corporate limit, I guess, the incorporated limit of Lancaster is about 47,000 acres. So the city of Lancaster essentially was returned to the Yurok tribe, which is pretty awesome. That is a win. That is definitely a win.
I heard about the formation of the Peace Summit, and I was like, is that PIEC?
He didn't even spell peace correctly. P-I-E-C-E. He didn't say. He said P-I-C-E. So he spelled it wrong. And it was such a poor delivery that nobody laughed. Because that was actually a witty comeback. I heard about the peace deal. The peace, or the Board of Peace. But I don't know. Is it P-I-E-C-E or P-E-A-C-E? I mean, that's actually witty. If delivered correctly. I mean, I wouldn't have made that joke. I wouldn't have used it as a spelling out. I'd be like, yeah, the Board of Peace, getting a piece of every country that joins it. Am I right? That would have been the quip. Never mind. We tried. You know what? That's here we go. A Navy teacher.
The cheers say it all. Students at Eagle Rock Middle School in Idaho Falls clutching American flags and surprising phys ed teacher Sean Steele, who's about to begin his service in the U.S. Navy. The choir singing Anchors Away, a song long associated with the Navy. It's especially meaningful for Steele, whose father and grandfather also served.
My grandpa was in the Navy for 20 years. My dad was in for 26 years, and getting the opportunity and chance to just be a part of that, it's a real honor in and of itself.
Well, good. You know what? That's a bit of a feel good. I mean, given the political climate of our country and the fact that the National Guard is being ordered into occupying cities, and that our Navy is committing war crimes in the Caribbean, and that we're occupying countries, I mean, I wouldn't choose now to enlist to serve my country and fulfill my patriotic duties and obligations, especially under this regime with a 5-time draft dodger who is instituting fascism. I personally was disgusted every time I went onto my weekend warrior shift while I was in the reserves after serving 6 years active duty and seeing Trump's mug in the halls. That disgusted me enough as it was. So enlisting during this regime, that's not going to do it for me. But the fact that patriotism and supporting the troops is still strong and resonant in the country, I mean, for what that is, maybe we're a little too jaded and radicalized in this stream to enjoy the send-off. Even though I talk about being in the Air Force all the time and I have my uniform hanging right there. Which brings us to the end of the stream. Good grief. I didn't think we were going to make it there for a while, talking about ICE the way we were and the shit that ICE is doing. So, it has been a stream. I, your host, your streamer extraordinaire, and president, Samuel Ronan, look forward to seeing y'all again on Tuesday. We stream Tuesdays through Thursdays, 7 to 10. Tuesdays, we talk about American news and politics. On Wednesdays, we talk about global news and politics. And Thursdays, we cover anything that we may have missed. So, with that being said, please continue to like, share, and subscribe. Please continue to be a part of our platform. Help us build the platform and help us fight back. Also, don't add or subtract to the population. Be safe this weekend, especially if you're in the Midwest, because we're about to get really bad snow. So, look forward to seeing y'all. Take care. Have a great night. Samuel Ronan, out.